All right. I promised August I would react to this video rather. Another Jubilee, because she loves Jubilee videos. That's her favorite thing. So we have to watch it. Anyway, it's called Are Men Falling Behind? Male Feminists versus Female Anti-Feminist Middle Ground. Very interesting combination here. Are men falling behind? I don't know. Maybe. I think as a society, we're all kind of falling behind. We have a lot of systemic issues, especially when it comes to poverty and just wealth disparity. And a lot of that is turned on by technology displacing jobs and driving down wages. And so I think that that's a fundamental problem of society, not necessarily a male specific issue. Of course, I think it disproportionately negatively impacts men, since there's usually a higher expectation of success on men to be financial providers, which is changing because of feminism, funny enough. So yeah, then there's another aspect that like women are catching up to men. So if you compare men to women specifically like that, then like you'll be like, oh, see, men are falling behind, when the reality is maybe women are just doing better than they have before. And so it seems like that, but it's not necessarily true. So I think that it's good to get people onto the concept that we're kind of dealing with a systemic poverty problem, or like an issue with like money more than anything else. Are you going to the grocery store, babe? Let's see. Why don't you go get me? Okay.
Can I ask you a question, though, or ask the group a question? There's more world leaders who are male, and typically I think
Good,
leadership...
that's a good thing. Women should not
That's
be in
fine. It
positions of
exists.
extreme leadership like presidents, et cetera, because we're too emotional.
I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now.
It's so weird. I don't like this emotional aspect or argument, because men are emotional too. They just manifest their emotions differently. Right, like guys tend to get angrier than girls. I think that like we should have. I don't care about forcefully inserting more women into politics. I don't care about that. But what I will say is that like it's good to have a mixture between men and women. I think that makes most perfect sense to me. There's this study that a lot of manosphere people will bring up, specifically just pearly things, and what it says is that like women leaders in Europe for like the past 500 years or whatever they get into more wars, and that's why they're bad leaders apparently, despite the fact that if they win more of the battles, right? And so if you actually look into it, it's very interesting, because what they find is that, first of all, women tend to get attacked more just on the value that they're women and perceived as weaker, but they still tend to win more of the wars. But there's a different dynamic between the kings and the queens. When it's a male ruler, the male doesn't really work with the woman. He works with advisors. But a female ruler will work with their man more. And specifically, the men have no incentive to betray them, because they won't get the kingdom if they have them killed or they fail in some capacity. So it makes them more incentivized to be like a better co-leader with the woman. And so it's really just how I interpret it is that men and women working together is more powerful than just a man or just a woman in some capacity. And so I think it's good to have more female leaders as a balance if they are, qualified for the job. Not that hot of a take.
If you agree, step forward.
Maybe? I don't think so. We'll see what they say. I wonder what they'll say. I'm curious.
I went back and forth on this one, thinking about the difference between more and different. I think women have distinctly different privileges than men have.
Sure.
But with this new feminist movement that is arising, more of the third, fourth wave, we are finding, I think, that women are placed and pedestalized above men in a lot of ways.
Okay, like what?
There's affirmative action hiring and scholarships where...
Okay, affirmative action hire. Okay, we'll start there with the claim. I don't think that that's necessarily putting women above men. Here's the thing. The reason affirmative action exists is because historically, mostly everybody, at least in America, everybody but white men were prioritized for jobs. And so to counteract it, they said like, okay, well, we can't force you to remove a prejudice. We can't force you to remove a prejudice against women and whatever, any other, particular group, but in this case, women. So we're going to make you have to have a particular quota, right? Is it perfect? No. Are there ways that it's going to be bad? Absolutely. But what other way could you, on a wide scale, make sure that jobs aren't denying women jobs? Or, companies not denying women jobs? You couldn't. There's no practical other way to do it. Right? So that's why that exists. That's why those scholarship programs exist. Is it unfair? Sure, but it comes from something even more unfair. And ideally, if we can get everybody on the same economic level, all groups of people, we won't have to deal with these issues anymore. Now, that may not happen for a long time, but I would focus more on that than anything else.
women, sometimes even regardless of academic standing or achievement, are prioritized above men. But men also have different privileges that they get to access.
Sure,
I struggle
like
to say more,
walking
but I
alone
think I do
at
agree
night.
with the feminist movement now. There is more.
If you are born into this life with a vagina, you inherently have 10 times more privilege than a man.
Disagree. Not for nothing, but I don't really listen to attractive women. No, I'm just kidding. That woman would be considered very societally attractive if you look at her. And so if you look at a very attractive woman like that, of course she's going to have specific privileges, and she'll filter her life through like, look at all the privileges like that I have. That must mean that all women have them. They don't. You're very pretty, well, conventionally attractive, right? So you're gonna get, people are going to bend over backwards to appeal to you. That's it. It's not that much of a hot take. So I don't agree with that. You know, for a very attractive woman, I'd say that your life will be considerably easier than most people's lives. Okay, it's not a hot take to say that. But you're not an average woman, so that doesn't matter. Like for a cute girl, people, like guys especially, will be like, oh, what do you need me to do? Oh, and they'll like simp for them in real life and do things for them. So, but you have to understand that your experience isn't everybody's experience. So what's happening here?
You inherently have 10 times more privilege than a man.
No,
from the
incorrect.
time they are little. Girls are always like doted on, and you're so pretty and cute.
Very coddled.
They're
Okay.
coddled,
Yeah.
right? As they should be. You know,
Yeah.
we want that
Why?
feminine, nurturing energy in them. You can kind of be
Okay.
a degenerate woman and have a hot body and be a millionaire on OnlyFans. Men don't.
Sure, but most women aren't going to be able to do that because not all women are attractive enough, like this girl is, to have an OnlyFans. It also takes a special type of a person who's willing to not give a fuck about, because it's you know, it's difficult mentally to do OnlyFans. This is the problem. Saying like, see, women can sell body pictures. Like, no, not all of them can. Not all of them want to. Not all women want to subjectify themselves, but not all of them even can. Like, you have to be like a top percent, like attractive woman, and that will, if you're willing to spread their asshole and pussy. So like, if your entire argument is like, oh, see, women have it easy because OnlyFans, like, you're just being a silly goose. So.
Have that privilege. Now, women don't have to like work to get a guy. They're just hot.
Okay.
And then guys come to them and spend their resources on them. A man has to prove himself. He has to build a
This is so
body.
dumb.
He has to make money. He has to.
But women have to build a body. Listen. Here's the thing. This is not how the world works anymore. In some areas, it still does. Mostly in the manosphere areas, this woman's probably proximity of that because she's an attractive girl with nothing else going on except for having pick-me energy. But most guys and girls have to make money, and they have to work jobs. They have to have work ethic. They have to show their worth. The average person isn't a super hot guy, girl or a super rich guy. The average person is your Joe Schro, working like a minimum wage job, not a minimum wage, but working like the old average job, doing the best they can to provide for themselves and their family. Right? Like, for instance, people I worked at with a bus company, they would be married to other bus drivers, right? You tend to stick within your class. Most people are middle class. Most people are dating somebody that works a job in some capacity. This just isn't how the world is. And it's just so silly when we pretend that it is. You know, like, this isn't your life. This is the life of somebody who's very different and very privileged based on like the way that they have that pretty privilege. So
build influence. He has to become a protector, a provider.
Okay.
Women just have that naturally.
Sure.
By just having a vagina, as
Well,
I
that's
said.
why it's frustrating,
Okay.
because the feminist movement has been all about women acting like they don't have rights and acting like
guess.
they have it pretty hard in the modern day world. I can't think of a single thing that I don't have that a guy has, or
That
you
they
know,
only.
like,
I would say the
yet
one.
they
I think that the problem is with this discourse is that we look at TikTok feminism as if it is like valid feminism, and it's just simply not. There are a bunch of little kids on the internet that are pretending that they're the most oppressed person in the world. It's mostly fucking young white women that think that they're fucking so horribly oppressed. The reality is that there's a difference between acknowledging particular oppression versus overly identifying with that oppression, right? Like, I'm a fat guy. So let's say I'm a fat guy, and that comes with some issues, some social issues. Obviously comes with some body issues too. It hurts my body, but I'm a fat guy, right? So let's say I went out to a place and somebody was mean to me. They were just rude to me, and I was like, it's because I'm fat. Do you think that that's what it was? Or do you think that maybe I'm just deciding that because I'm fat, that everything is chalked up to my fatness? It could be that, but that's the problem, is if you could identify with something, with a particular group that has some form of oppression, right? You can over-identify with it and end up victimizing yourself. whether it's intentional or not. And then all of a sudden you're walking around as if like you're the fucking biggest victim in the entire world. That's a problem, is over identification and like a victim complex. And a lot of people do that nowadays, especially young people. And they're like, oh, well, because I'm black, I must be oppressed. You might be. Or, oh, because I'm a woman, I must be oppressed. You might be. Not necessarily true. And the loudest voices tend to be the voices that have like the most access, like are usually the most intelligent voices that are the least oppressed. That's what I've seen, at least on TikTok. A bunch of young kids who think that, well, they're very smart, but they think that they can identify with everything. And then they hinge on that victim complex. So like, that's the problem. Are there women's issues? Yeah, for sure. I'd say most of them are social. I would say not a lot. Like, that's pretty much where most of them come from, like a social aspect. Like, we still like teach young girls maybe to not be strong enough. We'll teach them to kind of like not be too intrusive into particular spaces. And then that hurts their ability to advocate for things like a higher pay, which is why there is a little bit of a wage gap. It's not 98%, but it's like, I mean, it's not 82%, but it's like 98, 99%. And it's mostly up in like those management areas where women maybe don't advocate for themselves as much. And they're taught to kind of be like docile and just sit there and not be too disruptive, et cetera, et cetera. But these things are changing. There are still some systemic aspects to it. And then like you talk about autoimmune diseases predominantly affected women, like 90% of them. And we'd have like underfunded diseases, they're underfunded to talk about things like that for sure. I would say like not getting guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, which are massively disproportionately men, and then these women end up getting shot. These are kind of different and die, women and children. These are areas where women still struggle, but that's probably why they have this particular issue.
The thing I would say is the safety thing. That's the only thing that I would say, is that women are disadvantaged from, by nature, women are not as physically strong. I mean, you're physically strong, but as physically strong.
I'll take it.
It's great biceps. And men just are. And if
Okay.
you're walking down a dark alley as a woman, you're going to feel some type of way sometimes,
Sure.
right?
You need guns.
Well, there you go.
I'm going to talk a little bit more about like the judicial system. When it comes to, let's say, domestic dispute, if a woman calls the police, they automatically show up, arrest the man. The Duluth model, I think is how you pronounced it.
The Duluth model focuses on men who commit the crime of domestic violence, and let me just like make this bigger. And female victims. Its a theory is based on understanding of male power, control, and dominance as a culture and historically pervasive, and which not allowed if encouraged men to control women sometimes. Okay, interesting.
And that's already in place. It's not necessarily like a right or anything, but it's certainly in all of the police departments. If feminism is all about equality, why would you automatically arrest a man?
So I don't know if this is necessarily true. Like I said, we don't even deal with domestic abusers well enough, right? There's men that still get access to firearms after they are domestic abusers, and then they end up killing their spouses. Men are disproportionately more violent. You see that in every metric. Whether it's crimes committed, sexual crimes or otherwise, physical crimes, it's just a fact of the matter. And it's because men are very emotional. They're very, when it comes to anger, that is their emotion of choice, right? Does that mean that all men are bad? No. Does that mean women can't be abusers? No, of course not. There's a situation where women can hit you, and then it's hard to fight back because they might think that if you fight back, maybe you're the abuser now. It's a complicated issue, but like I think that this is a little bit disconnected to decide that, because there might be a little bit of a disparity when it comes to male abuse victims in some capacity, that all of a sudden this is some kind of a female privilege. But no, women are getting abused more violently, especially by men, because men are physically stronger and men tend to be angrier. This is just a thing that's happening, and we don't do enough about it. So.
And they arrest him. His name is in the newspaper automatically. The fact that a woman can say Jane Doe and she doesn't have to put her name out there, what skin in the game is there?
What?
And there's so many instances of that. I know men.
Not for nothing, but like if a police officer shows up to a domestic abuse call in some capacity, they're not really going to do anything if there's nothing physical seen. They might write up a police report, but they're not going to just arrest somebody just because you said, "Oh my God, I got domestically abused." I don't think. You're kind of just making up arguments at this point. If they show up and there's no physical abuse or anything, or nothing broken in the house, or they're not just going to go, "Oh, we got to arrest a guy because they said a thing," that's simply not going to happen. I think that you have this really, fantasy perspective on the way that these interactions happen. So I don't know what you're saying, but okay.
Personally, who have had domestic violence within the relationship with children involved, unfortunately.
Okay.
And the woman attacked the man in front of the child, and he's still, I know 2 instances personally, and he's still fighting to get the child back. That's from the
That
Me Too
sounds-
movement. Congratulations. You guys got that.
Maybe.
It kind of invalidates the women who do.
I'm sure that might be true, but that also was probably an outlier. If it's true, we should definitely like deal with some of these inconsistencies. The problem I have is that they're making this broad stroke argument that like women have it so easy and men are the real victims, when the reality is that like that's just not the case, right? So
do come forward and who have faced rape and sexual assault and all of that, because then it kind of turned into a Twitter hashtag.
That's correct.
Where women were like, oh, you know what, I'm going to join, like, this seems fun. Like,
For clout.
it's not
For
fun.
clout.
Jesus Christ, they're so dumb. Sorry. Okay, so first of all, when it comes to online spaces, like sometimes there are women, people that will leverage false Me Too claims in some capacity. It seems to happen more often than not, and it's annoying and it's frustrating and it damages the social conversation. Second of all, somebody claiming that they were sexually assaulted online without giving like an abuser is not them trying to expose somebody. It's just them saying like, yeah, I have this issue too. Women massively disproportionately are sexually assaulted or sexually harassed in some capacity at drastically higher rates than men. It still happens to men, and it can be uncomfortable for them to come forward, if maybe even more uncomfortable. Yeah, but let's not pretend that all of it is false. Jesus. Oh, there's a line. I got to get in line.
I think it's a mixed bag. I don't think the Me Too movement was inherently harmful.
Fuck
It's
it.
the Me
Fuck
Too
a line. Am I
movement
right,
when you
guys?
couple it with something
Fuck a
like
line.
believe all women. That's when it becomes
And the
inherently harmful.
victimization
It
of
We're
women
going
who
for it.
aren't really victims.
The prompt is, do women have more privileges? We have
I'd say
privileges
no.
simply by virtue
You
of
have
being
different
women.
privileges.
We have privileges with affirmative
Fuck a
action.
line,
We
baby.
have privileges in family court, and we have privileges as far as being believed and forgiven. It's something that should be acknowledged.
That's correct.
This guy said
Can I
no
have the
respect.
disagree a step forward?
I'm trying to steal this. There's a line, but I'm still gonna try to steal it because I'm a fucking goober. Because I'm an asshole. Okay.
I appreciated the distinction of more versus different privileges. You can't just use a broad brush and paint the entire debate and say, all right, well, this is men have more than women,
Come on.
that's it.
Come on.
Women that must inherently then have no
it's
privileges.
pissing me off.
That's not how it works. And that's where we start to get into the idea of like intersectionality, where
Sure.
another woman who had a different experience, if it was a trans woman, if it was a woman of color, if it was
But
a
I
woman
don't
who
think-
I don't know if that intersectionality really is relevant here. The intersectionality of fucking spawn pussy is really pissing me off. The intersectionality is the concept of like your different identities. Intersectionality is necessary here. This guy sounds like he's just saying a thing to sound smart. Bro, fucking spawn already. My fingers are hurting.
We're including trans women into feminism.
And I think we definitely should.
I don't
Like,
think we should.
I don't think
Damn, she got it first.
I
Oh, what a
think Trans
bitch.
women should not be a part of the feminist movement because a man, just because they,
Fuck a line.
wake up and feel like they can be a woman one day,
Line.
could come in and then suddenly know what it's like to have a period or know what it's like to have a child.
Well, that's not what trans people are trying to do. Trans people are just saying like, hey, I have a particular gender issue. I have a significant amount of distress associated with my gender identity not matching my biological sex. I don't feel like getting into the specifics of this because it's a conversation we constantly have. But it's simply not the same thing. The trans women aren't saying that they're the same as cis women. Online, people are crybaby pussies and saying that, but like not everybody's saying that. Most of the time, people will say one trans person say that, and they'll pick that person out and say, "Oh, that's every trans person," in a very silly, unintelligent way. That's not really happening. But I don't feel like getting into the specific conversation about it. Don't worry, Karma will get him. You'll see him dead at level 9.
It's anything from men replacing women in sports to men replacing women on podcasts during Women's Month and when we're talking about women's health, or you've even got biological men who think they're women going to the White House speaking on behalf of all women.
Well, no. Dylan Mulvaney went there to speak on behalf of trans women and trans people. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. No. Don't kill it. I don't want that that's coming up as my... Come on, I don't want it to... Okay, good. But, okay, sure. And yeah, I don't think trans women should compete in sports, but okay.
I do have a question for you based on the prompt,
come on.
though, because you've
Come
lived
on.
in both experiences,
Come
at
on.
least socially.
Come on.
I'm curious,
I'm gonna
when
come.
you transitioned to male and people started perceiving you as male, like most people did today, what privileges changed for you, or what did you see enter your life that you didn't have before?
Yeah, and that's sort of where a lot of my beliefs in feminism.
Oh, that makes sense as to why they brought up intersectionality, because they're a trans man. Okay.
Is because being
we got fucking
out into the world
cocks, guys.
as a gay woman was the way I was seen. Men treated me definitely not nearly as well as they did. I was bullied in school. I had people call me slurs, and it seemed like it was because I was threatening to like the male structure that we are in, where it's like male and female. Because I was a female who liked females, I was somehow infringing on that, and so they didn't like me. Things change naturally when you socially transition and are perceived by the world in a different way. When I transitioned from being perceived as female to the world to just pretty much passing or blending full-time as male, was that I got a lot more respect from other men. People listened to me and took me seriously. In a social passing setting, people aren't going to harass women who are around me if I'm walking with them at night, which is just a benefit I never thought about.
The caveat,
Interesting.
actually, so I say that, yes, there are some privileges that women have that men don't.
Damn, Daniel's fucking jacked, bro. They got a fucking beefcake on here. Look at the chaos that's ensued in this game. They were all lining up for this kill, and now everybody's just free for alling it because I'm a fucking goblin bitch and I don't give a fuck. But Daniel's fucking yoked. Just saying.
But also, there's privileges that men have that women don't. I don't think women are more privileged in our
You
society.
guys have different privileges.
I can
sure.
get a woman pregnant and I can just run away.
They could get you
Well, they
for
can
child
get you for
support.
child support, which they
But are you
do.
saying she can't run away?
Go to jail.
Sure, they can get you for child support, but having to pay child support isn't nearly as bad as having to take care of the baby. Not for nothing, but like your ability to just walk away is much different. Like, oh, I have to pay someone my check. Yeah, you might. Not in every instance, but you might. But that's not the same as like being stuck. Like if you think that it makes it like somehow magically easier, it's really hard to raise a child by yourself. It's a removal of a parent, time management issues, financial issues. Even with like a baby's cost a lot more than a 17% of your paycheck. So,
Are you saying
They
she
could take
can't
your
run away
money.
from the pregnancy?
But you could actually physically leave. I know what you're saying.
yeah, it's
At the
usually
end
easier.
of the day, like, I don't see women having more privileges than men because we don't have the same. There's no way to objectively measure it.
Well, and in the scenario
True.
that you pointed out, I mean, if a woman
got
was
it?
pregnant,
Damn.
she wouldn't be able to get an abortion in most
In some
parts
states,
of the country.
yes. In some states,
That's
no.
That's a
absolutely
major
true as well.
disadvantage.
Yeah.
You can't get an
Corner case-
abortion, but children can go get a gender change at 12 with a
Feels
parent
like you're
at
very
15.
Well, no, that's not true.
Stated on
You're just making things up because you're a dumb bitch. Right, so it's much more difficult to get. You can transition socially whatever you want. Medically, it's not that easy. I mean, it's simply not happening to this degree that you think it is. It's just not. You know, I'm obviously skeptical when it comes to kids transitioning like medically, but you're being disproportionate. It takes a lot to be able to get on some kind of like what would it be called? Puberty blockers, right? And that's a whole conversation about trans people that I don't want to get into, right? But if you notice people like Blair White and like Kelly Cadigan, like these popular trans women who like are advocating against children transitioning, they transitioned as children and they are very happy with their life. So I don't know, man. Complicated topic. Don't feel like getting into it.
Without consent.
That's not true.
feels like you're
true.
very
Without
as
fixated
someone
on
who
that
I know the
fluidity.
laws as well.
I went through this.
I know.
Without consent? What are you talking about?
Oh, in some states you can, and in Thailand you can go at 16 and
Okay, that's fucking Thailand. Who gives a shit about Thailand? You're not talking about Thailand. You're specifically having a conversation about women in Western culture. Thailand is not a Western culture. Who cares about fucking Thailand?
get your everything cut off.
Guys, it's less than 5%.
I know.
It
It's such a
doesn't
small-
matter.
it's such a small
It doesn't
subset
matter.
of the
But you
population.
can't. But you can't.
You're talking about Thailand. You're having conversations about Western society when you talk about feminism going too far, fourth wave feminism. Shut up about Thailand. You're being a goose.
say that about it. Does.
Oh, was
matter
Blair an
that
adult? I could have swore that she was younger than that. Maybe I'm wrong, but okay.
When you have a child, you're not a
That's
parent
between
yet.
the parent and the child.
Can I ask you a question though, or ask the group a question? There's more world leaders who are male, and typically I think
Good. That's a
leadership.
good thing.
I know it's
Well, he
weird
was
coming
talking
from
to
me,
me.
but I do want to know. It doesn't bum you out that it's
I'm never
less
gonna be able to
likely
get
for a woman
this.
to become president?
I don't feel bummed out because I know that if I want to pursue something that I want to do, I have every capability to do it
I'm
in
never
this
going to get
country.
this.
I don't feel bummed out. Women should not be in positions of extreme leadership like presidents, et cetera,
Why?
et cetera,
Who
because
cares?
we're too emotional.
You're too emotional, okay? That's why you have like fake tits and fake lips. But like, listen, Not all women are too emotional. All right, you're being ridiculous.
I'm
Men are
feeling a lot of
emotional,
emotions
too. Men
right
can be
now.
impulsive.
Very
Men
I'm not
can-
saying that men can't be
Yeah,
emotional.
Like we had a
Men are
president.
more
We had a president
logical.
who would literally just
And now
go
we
on
have a
Twitter
president whose
every
brain
day,
doesn't
every
work.
second.
Wait,
I don't know. Trump, Biden is a better president, whether you like him or not. The bar was low on the fucking floor. What did Trump even really do for us? Cut taxes to a point where he increased the annual federal deficit drastically before even COVID came around and fucking hit us really hard. So let's not pretend that fucking Trump was this amazing fucking, piss lord here, because he was not great. Let's just be fucking real.
One person so she can hear it.
To be logical and to be sound is
Oh,
not
this is
something
so
defined by
cringe.
gender. It's just something defined by your own
The
psychology.
left and right brained, it
That's just
actually
false.
is, though.
That's
That's
just
not
false.
false. It's not
Come on,
false.
Matt.
It
Come
is
on.
not
Really?
false.
Really?
No, your question about leadership, I think, is a very poignant question because a lot of people are asking that. Why don't we see more female presidents? Why don't we see more female CEOs or Fortune 500 companies? And again, it goes back to those gender differences. There will be women who will be exceptions to the generalized rule of what it means to be feminine, and those women you will see succeed in extreme leadership.
The problem is that like you've chalked all the differences between men and women up to biological differences. There are still definitely social factors that kept women away from being in like CEO positions. It's just a fact, right? Do we need to do more? I mean, socially, sure, but like that's just a fact. Like there's been too many to be like, no, it's all biological. No, you condition people from kids to go down particular paths. One of the people on the anti-feminist side literally said women should be coddled as they're getting grown up. Getting coddled isn't going to make for the best leadership person. So.
But we should also discuss what the conditions of extreme leadership are. We're talking 80-hour work weeks, subscribing yourself to your career and nothing else.
Forgoing family,
and
children.
Bro, come on. This is
psychologically
making me
and
fucking horny.
biologically, women tend to lean in the direction of not making those choices for themselves, while men are highly competitive, they are highly analytical, systematic, they're willing to put in that time and take extreme measures to gain career status.
Exactly.
But in an
Perfectly
egalitarian
said.
society, it's about having that choice to make that decision. And
Yes,
that's what feminism
But we
is about.
do,
It's
but
about
we already
having-
have that choice.
We
If,
do have
if
that
I want to go
But
own
it's
my own
being-
company, I
it's being
can.
restricted.
Like I said in the beginning, we've all agreed that the beginning of feminism was going in the right
Humanizing
direction.
women,
It
right?
was humanizing women. It was making them equal to men. It was giving us the same opportunities so that we can go vote, so that I can go get a job, so that I can drive a car. Like
She can
there's
run for
other
president if
countries
she wants.
that I know that we weren't talking about other countries, but if you want to talk about feminism, go protect the women who get beat up for driving a car. And
Sure. Yeah. I don't think that we can't talk about progress in America just because other countries are worse, though. I think that's a little silly.
other countries.
Men are falling behind in society.
It kind of already is. This. I don't necessarily. I think that if you think that they are, this is more of a systemic problem. Of men, of just poverty hurting men. Or poverty being an issue in general, technology displacing jobs, driving down wages, creating different issues for us. I don't generally have like a little bit of higher expectations on themselves to succeed. Like, yeah, I would say that it could be a little disproportionately negatively impacting men, but I don't think it's a male specific issue. So,
I just think, we have amazing men here today. It's an honor
thank
to
you.
be on this
You
panel
barely
with
know
you, to see this masculine energy. However, I know that men are not able to be men anymore because of the feminists, modern feminist propaganda.
What is
I
the
coach
what?
men in my practice, and they tell me like, I don't even know what I can do on a date anymore.
I
Can
get
I
it.
ask a woman
You got
out?
it.
Am I
I
gonna get
got
in
it.
trouble for this now? Like, I really like her. I kind of want to put my hand around her waist, but maybe that's gonna, I'm gonna be all over social media. This
okay, so you're being a baby. Your issue is that men can't touch women without their consent. That's not a fucking issue. Okay. Oh, I might get on social media. Stop. This is just silly.
kind of thing, and I think men don't have the balls anymore to just stand up and be a man, be dangerous,
No.
be fierce.
I want to respond to a lot of what
Respond.
you said.
I just don't know what you're talking about. That just seems so silly. Your example was that men can't touch women without their consent. Like, holy fuck. Well, society's fucking degrading rapidly. Holy shit. That's just silly. You can still make brave moves, okay? The men that, not for nothing, but it sounds like this woman is like a male coach. She coaches men to be real men. If you're going to somebody for that, you're already lost, brother. Like, not for nothing. You're probably already lost. If you're turning to somebody in the manosphere to teach you how, and that's what I'm assuming she is, to teach you how to be a real man, this has nothing to do with modern society. You just have some problems going on, and I would seek a regular therapist that's actually qualified instead of some fucking grifter. Or I mean, I don't know if she's a grifter. Instead of some fucking woman who grew up in her entire life privileged by being attractive, and then when she started to get less attractive as she got older, she decided to get lip filler and fucking big fake tits. I mean, there's probably better avenues for you to traverse to figure out the problems that are going on here than that. So. You do you, though.
Please.
Does anybody else want?
You make a really interesting point. However, I feel like a lot of the reasons why men can't actively express masculinity in a positive way is because of the patriarchal structures that we have. Part of where I'm coming from with this is I'm trans. So I was born female. Now I present as male. I came out socially and medically transitioned at 18.
Okay.
The feminist movement is what helped me feel empowered enough to be who I am and be a man.
And no disrespect to your process. I know it's a very strenuous thing that you go through, but I see a woman still. I feel feminine energy from you.
Let's listen. Listen, I say this before and I'm gonna say it again. Okay. First of all, men can be feminine, it's fine. Who really cares? Okay, as long as you're a good person. Second of all, I don't think that any of these like manosphere individuals or manosphere adjacent people should be having any conversations about what is a real man versus what a real woman versus whatever it is, when you have like manosphere leaders going around talking about how if a woman gets raped, it's her fault for not choosing the right man, and men going around insulting each other's wives and acting like immature fucking buffoons. There's no reason for you to be talking about this. You feeling feminine energy from a man, who cares? Some men have some feminine energy. It doesn't matter. Okay, stop being a fucking piss baby. It's childish to sit here and play this dumb fucking game. It's just a fundamental lack or devaluing of femininity, and it's just silly. It's just pathetic, and it's annoying. I know feminine men. Femininity is not a bad thing. We need masculine people and feminine people. I don't care if they're men or they're women, in both capacities. Who gives a shit? We have real issues going on. This isn't one of them. So it's just annoying. Men can be men. I do perfectly fine identifying as a male. Nobody has fucking destroyed my life, Nobody's tried to fucking... And it could happen, I guess. But like, just by saying I'm a man isn't going to get you canceled in any capacity. You're not going to be fucking destroyed. Problem is the men who pretend to be real men are fucking sex traffickers like Andrew Tate. Okay, they boldly proclaim how they love to engage in lover boy method and basically get women over, take their passports and whatnot, et cetera, et cetera. I'm at a point now where like I'm not going to qualify everything that I'm saying when it comes to this. You should know already. Just look it up. He's admitted to all these things. This is what it means to be a man. Apparently, is to deeply manipulate women and to fucking get them to do sex work and to have sex with them and to get your bottom bitch to help in this process, which is effectively a level of grooming. I don't know what you want me to tell you. So it's just enough of this dumb fucking bullshit garbage just being spewed around. And if that's like the pinnacle of what it means to be a man, Andrew Tate, like you're just dumb if you think that. That's a child. That's a fucking boy cosplaying as a man who likes to... If you abuse women, you're not a man, which is a fact. Okay? That's what it is. That's just what it comes down to. So why don't we get our house in order when it comes to actually calling out abusive piece of shit men first, before we sit here and talk about how some fucking trans person isn't a real man because you think they're too feminine.
That's all right. I totally
so when you
respect
say
that.
you're a man, then it's like, I don't see that.
The way I think about it is more...
Well, when I see somebody with big fake tits, I think that maybe you're not a real woman. I mean, like, you're not very natural yourself. I don't know why you would criticize somebody else for that. Honestly, like, why do we call out trans people for getting surgeries or whatever, or using hormones? But when somebody gets big fake fucking tits and like filler, you don't call them like you don't say that they're not natural in some capacity. It's like, I don't care, but it's like prompted now. So it's like, okay, what claim do you have? You're so self-conscious about who you are as a person that you feel the need to get fucking surgery, and you're going to sit here and you're going to like shit on somebody else. It's just fucking childish.
Like about individual choice and individual freedom. And if I want to say that I have feminine energy and people view me as masculine or vice versa, then that's their problem. That's not my problem. And for me, that's what feminism is about giving people the choice to act in accordance with however the hell they want to.
But that's a
not
very
how
dangerous
feminism
society.
Why?
That's not how feminism started, though.
How is
Yeah,
that?
we went from, wanting equal rights for women and
Okay.
equality for women, and now
What's
it's
Humanizing
dangerous?
women, right?
humanizing women,
Yes.
making it to where I think we all agree, women now are equal to men, and
Sure, on
with
paper.
like third and fourth wave feminism, especially fourth wave feminism, it's kind of turned into individuality. Like,
I mean, I'd say with the glorification of the manosphere becoming more prevalent, feminism is probably still necessary. So
you said,
It doesn't take a man to tell me how to be a man. It doesn't take a woman either. I can define myself as a man how I want to. I don't need somebody like Andrew Tate to be like, you're not a man unless you do this. I also don't need a woman to come up and be like, you're not a real man if you don't do this. And it's
You're
the same with
falsely
femininity.
pussy.
I'm not going to tell you how to be a woman. I don't think another woman should tell you how to be a woman either.
So what would you tell kids?
Yeah, like he has this, you have a daughter. Do
Yeah.
you really want to be guided by the ambiguous, define yourself as however you want to define yourself? And for her mind to be molded and shaped by men who, no disrespect, women who turn themselves into men and then turn themselves back and say there's a lot of dissatisfaction when the root of the problem wasn't the gender, it was everything else.
no. So again, let me just be very clear with this, okay? You want to talk about the lack of guidance, which you're talking about, because we can have sometimes a confusing social atmosphere. The biggest problem I think that young people are facing, especially young men, is not having their fucking father in their life, because men disproportionately don't want their kids more than women. That's just what it comes down to. Okay, you can still be a good father without being a good husband, but this is what's happening. Men and women are having kids, and then the men don't want to be in their kids' lives nearly as much as they should want to. Are there good men? Absolutely, but this is just what's happening. That's why there's so many, and they're just losing that guidance. You want to talk about how like LGBTQ people existing is destroying your fucking kids' brains? Why don't you start with, again, the no fathers in the goddamn household? It's like, holy shit. It's just like fucking Jesus Christ. I mean, that's the biggest problem, is fatherless children. That's what it comes down to. Are there bad mothers? Sure. There's definitely good fathers. There's some ways that the system can, negatively impact some fathers. But at the end of the day, this issue is mostly that men don't want to be in their kids' lives, and they don't try hard enough. And that's what it comes down to. If you want to be in your kid's life, you will be in your kid's life. The court system will even force you to take will force women to take kids to prison to visit. I know that this happens, to visit some of these dads. Right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it is a thing. If you want to see your kid, you will be able to see your kid. And there are men tapping out and going, well, the system's biased against me. Okay, then get one day a month and show up. But they can't even manage to do that. LGBTQ people have nothing to do with the downfall of fucking society. People have been saying that for years, and yes, and yet we live in the best country ever. Like, I don't know, the Western countries are better than any other country. It's inarguable when it comes to freedoms and quality of life. Okay, so like, stop sitting here talking shit. Yeah, we could talk about colonization and all that garbage, but at the end of the day, and it is real, but at the end of the day, like, that's just where we live, in the best country. And to sit here and say that it's getting destroyed because you're uncomfortable with a trans person is really just stupid. It's not the biggest issue that people or men are facing. It's weak men are the biggest issue, and those weak men are just men that are weak for not being for their kids. That's all it comes down to. And then you have this manosphere that talks about how it's all super fucking, these men are not sticking around because they're listening to fucking idiots, most likely like her. So
Let's slow down though. I feel like
I
rates
looked at the
of
percentages.
detransitioning, but
I
that's
looked at
neither here nor
percentages.
That's also a minority of the population.
feels like you're bundling a lot of ideas, which makes it hard to respond. But
Well,
I
because
That's
there's
true.
so much data to support
can you
these.
repeat what's the main
there's
question?
not.
Do you
on
want
the
your
answer?
daughter's mind to be formed and shaped by a society that tells her it's okay to be masculine and to be a man, and that she doesn't?
I mean, yeah, I'm married to a masculine woman. My mom's a masculine woman. There's nothing wrong with masculine women. I don't care about that. I like strong women, and I think that good men like strong women. You know, it's fine to be with like a weaker woman. I'm not saying feminine, because you could be a strong feminine person. But whatever. But like you're saying about trans people, like your kid's not going to turn fucking trans because they see the existence of other trans people. That's just not going to happen. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just not going to happen. Most of these identifiers are because they're born with it in some capacity. Like it's not going to, are there environmental factors? I'm sure that they are, but they're not going to see a trans person go, oh my God, I have gender dysphoria, and just start fucking shitting themselves. What the fuck? Jesus Christ. My door just like opened itself. Holy fuck. Sorry.
Need a man, and that it's better off for her to be alone and put her career first and not have children.
I think it's more.
Who cares if that's what you want to do? Be like, I think you should have kids and find somebody to be with. But if you want to be alone and have kids or whatever, that's fine. Who cares? I mean,
likely than not that she'll probably follow a more conventional path. If my daughter grows up and she wants to,
not for nothing, but like a lot of the women who are like, I don't need a man, are usually women who are wronged by men. Like they get right, and there are men who do the same thing, of course. But like I'm not afraid of women that are work oriented. We'll be fine. Okay, we can offset the an aging population through taking in immigrants. So I don't really give a shit about that.
dress like a boy, like great. If she, for whatever reason, is experiencing gender dysphoria, like we would
Take her to a
navigate
doctor.
that together.
Yeah,
but
sure.
that to me, it doesn't scare me. And
That's,
I would all the more
I
want to
think
live
it's
in a
sad.
world that.
I feel like that's sad because
Why,
it's a
though?
very, because
Sad.
my son, I encourage him. I say, you are to be, and I really don't care the backlash. You're supposed to be attracted to women. And
Isn't
I
that
tell
a lot of
him,
pressure?
and I tell, no, and I ask him,
so
"Who are you?"
weird.
Because life for transgender individuals and
You're
my
talking about him being straight, not trans people. I would never tell my kid they're supposed to be attracted to something. That's so weird. My mother never did that for me. Like that's so weird. That's a scary. Like listen, like that. Imagine being gay and your mom's just like you should be straight or there's something wrong with you. Like you're gonna be fucking. You're just gonna be sad. You're gonna have fucking mental problems because you're getting berated for not being right. You're gonna think there's something inherently wrong with you. That's not how homosexuality works. You don't just become gay because your mommy didn't tell you that you need to be straight. Like that's not how these things work.
son's African American as well, is very freaking hard. I don't know if
Yeah,
we can swear. I'm sorry.
You can.
It's very hard.
Hold on, what is-
Well, because life for transgender individuals, and my son's African American as well, is very freaking hard. I don't know if we can swear. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. There are disproportionately issues against LGBTQ people in Black communities, right? It's not like an inherent Black thing, but there's like a whole lot of like they're typically much more conservative, et cetera, et cetera. You're part of that problem. So for you to be like, yeah, there's hard problems. Like I wouldn't want my kid to be gay or trans either. Because like that's just a form of oppression that they're gonna have to deal with in some capacity based on like how bad it is in society. But if they are, I'm just gonna be like, all right, cool, you're all good, brother, or whatever, sister, whatever the fuck. Well, my kid, so but you get my point. But you're just playing into that lack of comfortability in a society for these LGBTQ people by just fucking saying no, I don't want them to. Like, it's gonna happen. It's either going to happen or not going to happen, regardless of your input. That's not how these things work, okay? It's not like you're like, I think I'm going to make my kid gay. Like most of this is biological. It's either something that like from genetic and with a mixture with some kind of like hormone washing in the womb, because that is a real thing. There probably are some social factors, but at the end of the day, your kid's going to be fucking gay. If you want. There's an excellent video that I recommend people watching. It's like, why are people gay? I did a video reaction to it. I'll link it in the description though.
You can.
It's very hard. Do you know this to be true?
Asking people or putting pressure on your son or putting pressure on my daughter to not.
I just tell them.
Okay, but to not be their true self, if that's truly how they feel,
that's
it
not
feels
their
like
true
that
self.
would
No,
be.
because they're not their true
that's
self.
this like
Thank you.
that's this way
can't find the
society
video,
has influenced everybody to
correct.
be
We
are
like,
so off
you know,
problem.
When you say I can
I feel-
identify, I can be whatever I want. If I want to say, I'm Beyonce today, I can now just be Beyonce,
But do you
right?
actually
That's not like what it is though, right? Like it's more of like it's not. That's not really what's happening. There's a difference between you saying that, oh, I'm Beyonce, versus like I have a significant issue with my gender identity, are two very different things. What the fuck is the name of this
believe
video?
that?
I do.
Okay.
Kind of
Wait,
feel like
wait,
I don't
wait,
think
wait.
you
Can we
believe
talk
it.
about
You
the prompt?
genuinely
Yeah,
want.
let's roll back
The
to
prompt's
that.
about
Here's
men
the
falling
other, here's the
behind.
other thing. Men are falling behind. Is it because of feminism, or is there socioeconomic factors that we're not looking at?
Well, how do we
because,
define
well, no.
falling
Let's
behind?
Yeah,
look-
what do you see as falling behind?
What's falling behind? So people in America, not just men, everybody is getting poor. This has nothing to do with
Well, that's
feminism.
not
Well, we're not
true.
getting-
No,
Okay, so okay, I'm gonna look for the video to show it to you, but you're being a little dumb right now. I'll watch it and badger you next stream, lol. But there is no gay gene and there's no pedo gene. I don't know, like, listen. First of all, there are genetic markers associated with being gay. It doesn't mean that there's one definitive gay gene. Second of all, I talked about hormone washing in the womb, which is an actual thing. In fact, if you look at the trends, for every like male that's born, like additional male that's born into a particular by a woman, it has a higher chance of being gay, which means that there's most likely a biological factor of being gay. Second of all, nobody chooses to be a pedophile. That probably is something that is like a mixture of some kind of biological incongruency that makes somebody a pedophile. Obviously, being a pedophile is bad and you can't abuse children. and it's definitely wrong, and we need to correct that issue. But this idea that people choose to be fucking, nobody's going to choose to want to fuck kids because society persecutes those people. Nobody's going to choose to want to be gay. Society persecutes those people. Obviously, being gay isn't wrong because you can consent with other adults, and being a pedophile is wrong. But like what you're saying is just fundamentally unintelligent and lacks like the understanding of any level of like mental health in any capacity. You're just saying uneducated things. So I don't know what to tell you. Oh, they have a swastika PFP? Do they really? That what the problem is? Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna ban you from the channel. Yeah, I didn't know that. Obviously, I'm getting like hit by some fucking dumb fucking troll. But okay. Yeah, let's move on.
That's a mental state.
No, it's not
that's
true.
a mentality.
This is economic data. We're
I'm not getting that.
Well, you can blame a president for that.
Okay,
and
back
the other
to the
thing
prompt.
is,
For what?
what do you
What's
define
happening?
as masculinity? It can be subjective
Tell
from
us,
culture to culture.
what do you define
I
masculinity
think masculinity is whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be this objective thing.
Generally speaking, masculinity is just like traits that men tend to have, and femininity is traits that women tend to have. But those are both good traits in different ways. And men need to be both masculine and feminine, and women need to be both feminine and masculine. And it doesn't really matter because there are good traits in both of these areas. It doesn't really matter necessarily, but that's all it really comes down to. You don't have to be like it's just that's all it comes down to. Like I don't know what else to say. Like the conversation about masculine and femininity is just fucking dumb. It's really just a social categorization of different attributes that you'll generally lend to men versus women. That's it.
Where it's like, oh, you're masculine, you're not. Like, so it could be different from our society to another society. And actually, in some countries, like men who don't provide for their families or are not the sole provider are not seen as masculine.
But are we talking about other countries, or are we talking about the U.S.?
But even
You brought up fucking Thailand. You can't sit here and say, are we talking about other countries or Thailand right now? Literally, you brought up other countries first. You fucking silly goose.
there are people who will say that's demasculating for a man to make less money than his wife.
I appreciate everything everyone's saying. I do want to talk about the prompt. When I heard the prompt and I heard that, I thought about men falling behind, I thought more like mental health, like suicide is more common with men.
We're going to go here.
No.
Why wouldn't you go there? Wait, what? Why would you even have that reaction? Wait.
I thought more like mental health, like suicide is more common with men.
We're going to go here.
Why would she just rolled her eyes at, like, I would say a pretty significant issue for men, which is disproportionately high suicide rates. She's just like, oh, we're going to go here. Why wouldn't we? That's a literal male issue that somebody that's supposed to be some kind of a male advocate would always talk about. Now, I believe that women attempt more than men, and men are just more successful because part of it's probably because they choose more violent methods. But then there's also more homeless men, and there's more men, it seems like, with undiagnosed mental health issues because of that homelessness. Because I can't imagine you're homeless unless you have some kind of like an issue with something. I could be a little ignorant on that, but how are you going to roll your eyes at like men struggle? That's a real men struggle. The second you did that, like you lost all credibility in being in anything for anything.
No, but it's true. Like men
But it's such
commit suicide at
It's
higher
not a cop
rates.
out. Like I'm not saying mental health isn't an issue.
It's a big
It is
issue.
an issue, and obviously a lot of men are experiencing a lot of pressure.
Have you heard like the term death of despair?
Men are committing suicide more. Men are dying from alcohol.
The diseases of despair are 3 classes. I'm going to read this. That says 3 classes of behavior-related medical conditions, the increasing groups of people who experience despair due to the sense that their long-term social and economic prospects are blank.
Related illnesses more, and they're also dying from drug abuse and drug overdose more.
Correct.
And that's an increasing trend.
Yeah, it's an
in
issue.
Society.
Yeah.
And then you
That's
see
wrong.
educational
That is
gaps.
No, there's no denying that. Like young men are abandoning colleges at a rapid
Yeah, it's a
rate.
lot of pressure.
What the fuck? Oh. There's... Maybe is it me? Okay. Sorry, I just need to take like a breath. Did she say they're abandoning college? Like, who cares?
Young men are abandoning colleges at a rapid
It's a
rate.
lot of
What does that mean? What does the college have to do with anything? I'm not understanding the. Maybe I'm just being silly, but like the issue of mental health, I don't think is tied to college. I would say that college isn't bad if you know what you want to do, and it's not bad to get your 2-year degree in like liberal arts in case you want to take it and go with it more. But if at the end of the day, if you're not going to do anything with your college, you shouldn't really be going to college. And it's probably better to go to a trade school. I'm just not understanding how we're sitting here talking about like men disproportionately self-medicating, basically, which is what it sounds like they're saying, and having like committing suicide. And then you're talking about I might be ignorant. And then your first thing to say is like, yeah, men aren't going to college. It's like, well, okay, sure.
pressure to be a man.
They're also far lonelier than women are right now.
Yeah, women are the
Hold on. Can I finish my point? Sorry.
I don't know if that's true, but if it is, men just have different relationships with other men than women do. They're usually like a little more, they don't open up as much, which might be one of the reasons why. I don't know. Maybe.
Like, don't let me lose my train of thought. They're abandoning.
College is tied. Poverty and scholarships go to women. Scholarships don't just go to women. Like, we have to stop thinking that. Scholarships go to poor people too. Like, men can get access to scholarships just like women can. I'm just saying that, like, men can still get scholarships. It usually is based on like poverty, and that's probably the best way that we should operate. They can still get sports scholarships as well, which tend to be better than women's sports scholarships. Like, men, they can still get scholarships. It's not that difficult. I mean, scholarships can be difficult, but like, you can get scholarships. Men can still get scholarships. Like, it's not super duper hard.
In colleges, women make up, they enroll in college at a 60% rate. Women are earning more than men nowadays.
No, they're not. That's like up until the age of 28, and then that changes. So doesn't necessarily mean they're earning more. It just seems like they might make more money in the short term, and that's probably because, I mean, I have no fucking idea why, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're making more. It means they're making more under a certain age, that is of 28. So that's just a distinction to make, is that I believe it's women 20 and under will make more money 20 and under until will make more than men. Women like 20 and under make more money than men, and then once that age range ends, it shifts back. So it's just something to keep in mind. But okay.
Right? So
that is
hold on.
We can get to the wage gap.
It's about enrollment. So are they having other jobs? Yeah, probably. Sure. But I'm saying, like, men are not going to these institutions. Why?
Okay, so let's see. Young women are out earning young men in several U.S. cities. So this is just in some cities, apparently. It's not even everywhere. The gender wage gap is narrowing among workers nationally. Wage gap, 20. Okay. Yeah, so there's a few areas where median annual earnings of U.S. women and a percentage of men. Okay, so young women earn at least as much as young men in 22 states. Oh, that's not even the statistic. Wait, what am I talking about then? Young women earn the most relative to young men. Okay, so there's like 10 cities where they earn more. Okay, they're earning a bit more in these areas. Okay, I mean, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't really matter as long as they're doing it. But still, overall, women are earning less. And there's a lot of different factors, but like, this isn't like this widespread thing. It's obviously very conditional to multiple different factors.
You're saying lack of enrollment. There's more entrepreneurs in the entrepreneurial space than ever before in history. So I believe a lot of people are opting out of college, as we had, to pursue their ventures. So that could be part of the reason why the enrollment has declined.
Can I just go back to a point that you said really quick?
Yeah,
where you talked about like the mental health of men and how the stigmatization of men addressing their mental health.
Yeah.
What system are we in that makes it so that men have this big stigma around our mental health where we can't talk about it and the suicide rate goes up?
Are you trying to, I think that they're just trying to get them to say patriarchy. I guess, maybe, sure. The only reason I don't like the term patriarchy is because it's just so annoying. Like, I understand that we've had a society that was male dominated for a while, but the problem is that it feels like it just pins all these problems on men. And it just kind of gets annoying. To me, it just it centers a conversation around like, whose fault is it for things that are happening? I would say our current system is a bit flawed socially, but to when you say patriarchy, like, I understand that it's like technically correct, but it just kind of it brings like a divisive air to the conversation, in my opinion.
We are in a patriarchal system.
Hold on, let me tell you.
Those are the bounds we are within currently.
There's a lot
That's toxic
Can
masculinity.
Mason complete his point? I'll encourage you to let the other person.
Damn, see, women are too emotional. They don't stop talking. They can't let the man talk. You guys shouldn't even really be there. I mean, women aren't supposed to be able to have voices, honestly. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding.
And then, of course, you can take it forward, but let them talk.
Just real quick.
thing.
The systemic structures we are in
Yes.
are patriarchy. That is what has caused men to have this massive stigma around mental health,
Sure.
where we don't feel empowered to reach out. Men tend to not go to therapy. That leads to suicide.
Men tend to not go to doctors either at higher rates. Like, men, they try to tough it out,
That leads to all of these big things. That's not caused by feminism. That was happening well before the feminist movement came into these new waves.
There's a lot of psychiatrists, psychologists, and economists, professors, all these.
Wow. Okay.
People coming out saying that the actual psychology department is feminized. I know.
I'm processing what you're saying.
I'm processing what is she talking about? The psychology department is feminized? What the fuck does that mean?
The psychology
It's weird,
department?
but the way that everything's processed is for women. So
What does that
women
mean?
and men process information differently.
What do you mean I'm so confused. I don't understand. Between 1995 and 2015, the number of women within the academic psychology workforce more than doubled, and their representation increased from 37% to 53%. Okay, that makes sense that there would be more women in psychology, specifically social work, because empathy tends to be a female trait for sure. But that doesn't mean it's feminized. I don't even know how I would look into what she's saying, because she's just being so silly. And I would say that most of these areas are probably in like underpaid areas. Like social work is like a fucking 6-year degree, and then you're gonna start at like maybe $40,000 or $50,000 if you're lucky, which I think is just a fundamental devaluing on jobs that women tend to gravitate towards. What do I look up to talk about this? What did I even say? Feminization of psychology. An increased number of women are joining the field in psychology, according to national. Okay, so this is just talking about blah blah blah. According to the annual survey conducted by the okay, this is just talking about how more women are going into psychology. This doesn't speak to that. In order to describe the changing demographics of psychology. Wait, it just refers to the demographics of people that are in psychology. It doesn't refer to. It's just a very abstract like thing. It just refers to women in psychology. It doesn't mean that like it's against men. I don't know what her fucking point is. I think that she just heard some really basic information and decided to run along with it. I understand empathy can found in any person regardless of sex and gender, but empathy tends to be like a female trait more than, or a feminine trait more than anything else. It's not. Men should be more empathetic. That's my point here, right? But okay, anyway.
Is for women. So women and men process information differently.
I guess.
Men are like this in their brain. Women are, it's all over. And like, what the hell?
I think that your brain is just fucking, I don't know. You must have had a lobotomy when you were younger or something, because I have no fucking idea what the hell I mean, I understand that men and women are different in the way that they think about things. That's true. But just because there are more women in psychology doesn't mean that like it's becoming feminized to the point where men can't get help. So
what does that mean?
Well, it's left brain, right brain.
When you process like
simple.
men need to solve the problem before they can process the emotion.
Women
react
on
emotion.
Yeah, that's it.
But so women have they do better with talk therapy. That doesn't always work for men.
Who cares? That's not all therapy. I'm 33 years old. I used to go to therapy from like 10 years, from like when I was like my young ages. Okay. And my best doctor, therapist rather, he would have me play chess. So this might be true, but you're acting as if the doctors only do these things in one way, that you have no idea what you're talking about. I would go there for an hour and 40 minutes would be me playing chess, and then I would slowly open up as he would ask me questions. You're saying things that you have no idea. You don't know what you're talking about. Talk therapy can work for men, but also, like, you just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, these methods are used. You stupid bitch took my fucking kill. It's a fucking NPC too. These different modes of therapy that you're referring to are already used. For you to just say like, no, men don't benefit from it because they're men. You don't know how therapy works. Not all therapy is the same in any capacity. That's why it's a good idea to shop around for a therapist that works for you, because everybody's a little bit different. What are you talking about? Like, you're just being a silly goose. What are you saying? Like, you're just talking. You think that all therapy is talk therapy. You just don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Men do better when they are kind of working with a coach or somebody that's going to be like, this is what you have to do, and then come
like
back
massive action steps.
That's why mentors work. That's why men need.
He had a thought.
Oh my god, mentors! Holy fuck, dude! I didn't even think about it like that. I prefer Star Tours personally. Fuck. It's in Hollywood Studios and Disney. We're gonna go soon with my wife, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Finish his
So,
thought.
the same problems with the military, a lot of the suicide rate. Even though there is therapy services.
And then there's also massive issues with women and getting sexually assaulted inside of the military too. I just want to bring that up. That's also a woman's issue. So
They're actually actively discouraged. And it's because of this masculine energy in the military, because it is still, even to this day, a very ultra masculine institution.
Makes
and there's
sense,
these
yeah.
negative energies saying like, hey, no, you shouldn't like go talk. That's what these fucking do.
But that's
But-
toxic
Well, it's
masculinity.
interesting
Yes.
that-
Okay.
But
That's not patriarchy.
it comes from a
There's
place
a difference.
of no, it comes from a
well, I mean, like toxic masculinity would come from patriarchy. I think that I think that saying patriarchy is cringe enough, but like that's where it would come from. Like if you're going to talk about these things, at least understand what you're talking about.
place where it's like, oh, that's not what men do. Just suck it up and push on. And that's why a lot of these guys end up killing themselves.
But
Makes
what
sense,
branch were you in? Can I ask?
I was in the army.
Okay.
Was,
So you're an athlete, correct? And
Yes.
in the military, what is in the military that makes everything work within the military? It's a structure, right?
yes, it's a structure.
It's a system, right?
Okay.
Who runs the military? Who is at the very top of
What's
the
her
command?
point?
Oh, the commander-in-chief, the
Correct.
president of the United States. A couple hundred
But
years.
but I'm making a point
What's
here.
the point
So
you're
there's one
making?
person at the very top. Even if you take the commander-in-chief away, there's your general, right? And there's lieutenant
Sure.
general, there's corporal, and I forget the, don't hate me, there's all those private,
Okay.
et cetera. There's a system. One person is at the top of that system.
What's her
and
point?
he has supporting members underneath him, all the way down to private. And that's what patriarchy was, quote, patriarchy was designed. It's a system of one person taking a leadership position, and they make decisions for the greater good, utilitarianism of all.
What the fuck are you talking about? The patriarchy is just like is more of a male-dominated society and like creates structures that benefit men over women. That's obviously changing every day, but what the fuck are you talking about? He's talking about how like there are aspects to it where you're not encouraged to seek out like mental health help, and it's bad for men. What a hot take. Like it's a good take because there's too many people in the military and in police officers beating their fucking wives. So like, you know, they definitely need more of an issue with mental health or to focus on mental health. But what the fuck is she talking about? Like what? She's just saying words, dude. You have to stop talking. You're such a fucking silly goose.
Meaning the family unit.
That's
What?
not really what
That-
patriarchy
and actually,
means.
that's
It
that's
is.
a
I
very-
looked
that's-
up the
That's a
definition,
very.
actually.
That's actually a very.
I
ideal
literally
one.
looked it up yesterday.
Wow, great.
I got lost.
Well, you know, everything that we look up from a day ago, we have a really robust understanding of. So
Need the male feminists also to respond because I feel like they've spoken 20%. Once they're done with their thought, feel free to interrupt, but let them finish a sentence.
Okay, I want to talk.
damn, gotta police the women because they're talking too much.
I'm gonna talk. I mean, I do think men are falling behind. I feel like the world is just changing in a way where men don't have like a natural place to fit in, or
I
it's
don't know
not
about that,
as
but-
intuitive as it used to be. And I think men are alone. I heard you throw out the word loneliness, and that does feel true. I just don't think that feminism did that. I just think like the world is changing.
What you said really-
Feminism kind of did that, but not in a bad way. Feminism just sought to like make men and women equal, and women to be able to, you know, have a little bit more of a say in a relationship and not be completely dominated by a man just because they're married to them. And so that lack of like full control has made it difficult for some men because they're still used to like older structures that are changing every day. So even like your relationship with your mother and father's relationship isn't necessarily going to be completely represent the way that you're going to have a relationship in the future. So you kind of have to adjust, and it can be difficult to do that. But, you know,
really resonated with me when we define falling behind. What I think about with men is that high suicide rate, that likeliness and proclivity towards violence and aggression. I think about
Sure.
loneliness and not being in relationships with which young men are struggling with a lot right now. And where I feel finding common ground and feminism does get right in a sense is that we should expand our horizons as far as how we view masculinity. Men should be able to cry, they should be able to be vulnerable, and that's something that we need to access. But also, these men who are feeling disillusioned with the world right now, they are seeking out male figures. We've seen, you know,
yeah, because they don't have their fucking dads.
the rise of the Jordan Petersons or some of the personalities at the Daily Wire or the Andrew Tates. They are seeking out somebody who's
Yeah, the fucking sex trafficking rapist pieces of shit. I'm talking about Andrew Tate, like Jordan Peterson's and all that's fine. You know, you're better off looking at Ben Shapiro as like a fucking example of what it means to be a man, since he at least has like a healthy marriage.
telling them, I want you to access those masculine traits and harness them in a way. I would say Jordan Peterson's probably a more healthy role model for men than, say, an Andrew Tate. But men are going towards these more aggressive, masculinized traits and seeking out men that are trying to harness that for them.
Yeah.
I thought you made a really great point that I totally agree with, where men are looking for these role models of how to embody masculinity because we are falling behind and a lot of people don't know how to act. What's really important, and what I've seen, at least in my experience, like feminism bring up, is the idea of like Justin Baldoni doing his talk about being man enough for your woman, being man enough to be emotional, being man enough to support children. That's the type of manliness and masculinity I think needs to be embodied so that men can catch up and feel like there's a place for them. That's something that we need to focus on, is making sure that people know how to embody masculinity in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone.
Women should also be drafted into the military.
Let's do it. So, I mean, sure, I don't care. The reason I don't care is because nobody actually gets drafted into the military, so it doesn't really matter anymore. If you said the women should sign up for the draft, sure, but we haven't pulled on the draft in like 60 years or some shit. So like, yeah, sure, women could get drafted. I don't care. Like, it's kind of a non-issue question. I would say, like, who really cares? Because again, women are just, we're not utilizing the draft, so it doesn't really matter to me. But
If you're going to vote, you might as well be drafted, baby. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe rights come with responsibilities, and we are all responsible individuals. Granted, I'm glad we live in a society where we haven't had the draft since, like, think this
50
Vietnam.
years. Yeah,
Vietnam. I think
yeah,
Vietnam.
50 years ago.
I do think that maybe, like, we
Yeah, a
should
few years ago.
relook at the draft and as other options, not just military service. So I was in the active duty military, and I was also in the National Guard, and I've fought wildfires, and like I've done crowd control. I've done a lot of other things. If you want the same rights, you have to have the same responsibilities, and I think that's just universal based on what you can do and your abilities.
This was a very difficult one for me to parse through, because I remember when I was getting my birth certificate changed, and it was like, all right, time to register for selective service, and I was like, oh God, I have to make this decision now to register.
You don't have a choice.
I know, I don't. So I was like, all right, cool. Like, I will go through with finishing all this legal stuff up and register. And I think, like you said, there's lots of other responsibilities that men and women of different abilities and different strengths could
Bro, did
fulfill
these die already?
within selective service if we needed it.
okay.
Drafted, correct me if I'm wrong, would be going into war, would be physically going and doing
Not
the
sincerely.
If we needed it, sure.
actual
A
combat.
lot of the draftees in Vietnam didn't go see combat. They did supportive roles.
Okay.
It's selective service, so you register to
Right.
be potentially needed to call for multiple different
Right.
responsibilities.
But some of them are going.
Right. Right.
Some,
So
Sure.
there
Right,
was
right,
some
right.
So
bad cases.
the part
actually.
that I would disagree with would be putting women on the front lines. We are physically capable to do a lot. You know, there's different boundaries for women who go into the military, who have to do boot camp, than there are for men.
Sure.
We can work women as hard as
Here's the thing, another thing I don't care about. Like, yeah, men are probably better in combat roles, whatever. That's up for the military to decide what to do with different people. But like, the 99% of people aren't going to see combat or whatever anyway. So there are plenty of other roles. So why not? It doesn't really matter to me. So
they can, but they're not going to work as hard as men are.
I actually got accepted into the Air Force, which would have
okay, that's working as hard as somebody isn't the same as being like, okay, this doesn't make sense. I'm sure that women in our military work just as hard as the men. They just can't achieve as much, generally speaking, depending on what they're doing. Like, women can work harder than men physically, but that they're still not going to be able to achieve what like a man can from a physical perspective. I understand what she meant, but I think it's a distinction that we have to make, especially if you don't think that trans women should compete in sports, because trans women don't have to try as hard to achieve better results. And that's one of the biggest counters to trans women in sports.
have been like very nice, because I would have had a little desk job. But unfortunately, I
Okay.
was waiting for a job, so I went into Army. So I went through boot camp, and it was
Okay.
hell, and it really messed my back up even more than it already was.
fuck.
Our rationale skills and our logical thinking is not conducive to be able to be
You went to combat training and then you left because your back hurt. I don't know if I don't. Okay, whatever.
on the front grounds, to be able to make, oh my gosh, if I step here, this is going to blow up. Can I, like,
No, women aren't incapable of making these decisions. Probably the best argument because my wife has somebody that like a guy that used to be in the military, is that for men when you see a woman in the military, the idea is like there is for men, like the concept of chivalry kind of overtakes them to the point where they'll end up going too far to protect like the women. It's like some kind of like a response of like, oh, I have to protect this woman who's in the military. And that makes sense to me. But women aren't incapable of thinking on their feet. Like you would learn how to do that inside the military. Oh.
We just get too emotionally, and that's why when we talked about leadership,
Stop with the
it's
emotional
the same thing.
shit.
Being
You're
in those
so
positions
annoying.
where like split-second decision could make or break, I don't
sure.
think women have it in them to do that.
Bro, men can't find things in front of their face, okay? This is a popular issue with men and women, okay? Where all you ladies know that your husband cannot or your boyfriend can't find anything in front of his fucking face. All right? Listen. Okay, so I'm sure that that'd be a little difficult, right? This is just a little bit of a joke, but the point is like this is just a silly point. There, like the reality is women will go into the military and they'll be evaluated for their ability to do particular things. They're doing tests on the ability to think on your feet. It's not like that's not happening. It's definitely happening. So,
and I don't think it's fair to men to be. I wouldn't, if I was a man, I wouldn't want to be next to a woman and want to be carried out.
What are you, gay?
If I needed to be, if my life was depending on it.
Okay.
It seems like a lot of the same discussions keep happening with these prompts, which is back and forth of how much is it nature, how much is it nurture, how much are there like intrinsic biological differences between men and women, and how much does that dictate
I didn't put this on increased
our
speed.
behavior
Fuck.
and our physiology, our biology, versus how much of that is through social learning. So how much it's our culture in terms of, let's say
Societal
like
programming
on a
versus-
scale of 1 to 10, how high is your sex drive?
Very high. I'm a sex
I'm
coach.
not asking you
Oh, I thought
personally.
you were. I like it.
So I wasn't asking you.
Sorry.
If you ask everyone that,
Yeah.
You'll see on average differences between men and women. And because of that, I don't think we should dictate whether or not someone is drafted into the military. Because ultimately, I think individuals should have the freedom to make certain choices.
It's a draft, though.
Yeah, and they can go in if they want.
It's a draft.
Yeah, so you get drafted and then they'll put you in a role that is conducive to your abilities. It's not like you get drafted and they just like fucking throw you into a box and go, you're doing this. Like you get drafted and then based on your capability level, they're going to put you in a particular spot. Women getting drafted isn't going to be an issue. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You guys have such a silly like way of interpreting like the way the draft works. Like you think that it's just like a random number generator is going to dictate what you're going to be doing for the day. Bro, you better help me. I swear to God, I'm going to find out who you are in real life and I'm going to kick you in the fucking dick. Thank you. Sorry.
And what you're saying, you don't think people should be treated differently because there can
Exactly.
be metrics
It's
that fall outside
differential
of the data.
treatment. That's
Of
what I'm
course,
getting
yeah.
at.
So there is differential treatment, but I would say that it's completely reasonable to do that because not only are we focusing on the differential treatment, but we're focusing on outcome. So if I'm expecting somebody to go into combat, which is the
Why does she
reason
sound so
I didn't
nervous
walk
every time she
forward,
talks
you
to
should
me?
also expect that person on an individual basis to be able to meet the exact same standard as every other man that they are going to be
is what I
fighting
said.
with.
So the
Now-
military has made a change on that, by the way.
Yes,
they
they
have a
have.
new individual test that's based on what jobs you're going to do. If you're doing more combat
Sure.
roles, yes, you have to be stronger and tougher, and there are women meeting those standards. That's
Yes,
why
sure, yes,
things
I
are
agree.
changing. And like I said, I'm not for the draft at all, really. I think it's
Agreed.
a really bad thing. But if
Yeah.
it was to happen, like it should be.
Well, the draft should really just exist if we need it, but we shouldn't need it ideally, especially nowadays. We aren't really fighting wars the same way. Things are more like cyber wars in different ways and like different types of intelligence and whatnot. So
Across all boards, everybody gets treated equal.
If I could choose the possibility of women being drafted or not, I would choose that they're not. Well, I don't want
saying
my
anyone.
daughter to be drafted.
I think if you draft, at least account for the differences, please.
okay.
Female sex workers should be more respected.
It's an interesting question. That was good. I had an antacid. Now I'm gonna have an uncle acid. Listen, when it comes to female sex workers, here's the way I see it. Probably, but here's what I'm gonna say. Instead of telling you if I think more or less should happen, I'm just gonna tell you the baseline of the way I think that we should treat people in sex work. Like they were just doing a job that they got to do. I don't think you should disrespect somebody just because they do sex work. They're just doing a fucking job. I think that we should disrespect pimps because they're abusive pieces of shit. I grew up around prostitutes. They're not good people. This whole glorification of pimp culture is probably the fucking childish thing I've ever heard in my entire life. These people, usually women, are like force-fed drugs and are put in situations where they're effectively getting raped a lot of the times. If we had a better infrastructure, like in Las Vegas, women would probably have a little bit more, they'd have more rights over themselves. You could do that if you want. I don't know if I necessarily agree with having legalized prostitution, but just respect them for like, oh, they do a job, and that's it. That's the only thing that really matters. It doesn't have to get into this whole thing where we should respect them like more than anybody else. But like, yeah, you shouldn't see a sex worker and go like, ew, get out of here. You know, it's like, okay, you're just doing your thing. So, bro, I don't care if
I don't
you
know
don't like what I'm
a ton
chewing.
about this topic,
Shut
but
up,
I do
pussy.
think I subscribe to the idea that legitimizing sex work reduces the safety risks associated
Probably.
with that profession. It's a very old profession. It's been around for a while.
It's going to continue to be around.
I don't, I think it's also, there's tools out there like OnlyFans that I think has put a lot of the power in the hands of the creators.
A lot of people don't realize like nobody like actively chooses to be in sex work. You're usually going to sex work because of social situations.
Yeah, generally nowadays probably a little different. Now that like OnlyFans exists, there's probably a little more choice to it, and especially I think that there's a little bit of a harmful like online narrative sometimes on TikTok, which I'm not seeing as much anymore, of like glorification of sex work. It's not happening as much. There's more people talking about how it's not this like easy, silly little thing for girls to do. If you want to make money, you have to make an OnlyFans, consistently upload and spread your whole asshole and pussy and like any other thing that guys want to see. And it's not this glorious job that some people want to pretend that it is. Outside that's like, do you? I would say like try to have a long-term strategy, because you are not going to be able to sustain that for a long time. There's like the top, like you have to be the top of the top of the top to be able to make like a living out of that. So be wary of that, of course.
And if it's a black market, most people ask why I joined the military. It's like, because I was poor. Like, there was no other fucking reason. And I'm not saying it would get rid of exploitation, but if women have legal protections, like if I was a prostitute and I could go to a cop and say, hey, I got beat up and my money stolen, not being worried about being arrested, like I would be more likely to report crimes and get the people who are causing problems.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. I don't know if this is happening everywhere. It might be in New York. I don't really remember. But that's just the concept of like it's, yeah, I agree with that. Like destigmatizing prostitution in the way where like they can still get help and they won't get arrested because they're a prostitute. You know, arrest pimps though. You know what I'm saying? I think the concept is like arrest the clients, but not the workers. You know what I mean? That's usually what it centralizes around. It's like, okay, if you pay for a prostitute, arrest that person. But if you are the prostitute, it's like, don't arrest them, which makes sense to me, because usually somebody who's actually a physical prostitute, like not like an OnlyFans person, like that's you didn't make that choice. I don't think anybody would choose to do that, especially in an area where it's illegal. But so arrest the guy, don't arrest the girl, or arrest the client and not the worker, even if the worker's a guy, you know?
Yeah, and then for the people who just want to do it and want to just like own their sexuality, own their body, and use it as a commodity, a way to make money, they should be able to do that in a way that is safe, in a way that they own all of the videos, all of the content that they make, and in a way that is equitable for them.
When it comes to respect, there's two definitions. Respect either can mean like politeness, like you wouldn't shut the door on somebody that's like walking behind you, like be respectful. The other respect is usually if you do something that in the workplace that garners approval, you've completed a goal.
So
when we talk about respect when it comes to
this isn't two different definitions. This is two different concepts of respect, but okay.
Sex workers. Should we be polite to them? Probably. That would be a human thing to do. I don't have to, but yeah.
Okay.
I prefer OnlyFans over the traditional porn industry.
Yeah, because you own it, and then it's
women
a lot
got
more
sex trafficked.
But that agency is important.
I
know that
just can't say words. It's fucking wild. Holy shit.
Yeah.
You own, and to have that respect put onto you, that like this is your content you're putting out into the world.
Yeah, now it's their copyrighted material. Before, when it was the old porn industry, they didn't have rights to those videos, and that's a huge thing. Like if I want to take my stuff down, you have to go to a court with a copyright case.
I'm curious.
And
that's what happened with Mia Khalifa. That was her whole thing, and luckily now she has a very successful career doing like sports commentating and stuff. But unfortunately that's not the rule. That's the exception. Where she's been able to be
it's a role model.
I guess.
Right off the bat, you said Mia Khalifa went from being a porn star to being a sports commentator. That is something that we should be directing women towards. It shouldn't be, okay, well,
sports commentate? It's okay.
She's going to go do an OnlyFans, or she's going to be in 50 porn videos to get paid. When we're encouraging women to go out of their way to sell their bodies on the internet because that's a means to an end, we're not doing that the right way, and I don't think the feminist movement should be moving in the direction of normalizing sex work when we should be encouraging women to value themselves, value their body, value their talent, and take that elsewhere.
There's a lot of things.
Okay. Listen, not for nothing, but these men versus women conversations are just a distraction from like issues of like class and poverty. Like, let's just be absolutely real. Like, if you want to deal with sex work, destigmatize it, and then provide other financial opportunities through other like robust means to figure out wealth, like redistribution in some capacity. I am a pretty staunch advocate of like a universal basic income or negative income tax in some way. We have, like, technology is displacing jobs. It is driving down wages. it is making it more difficult for people to succeed. If you want to get rid of sex work, you don't have to actively ban sex work, because we did that, and guess what? There's plenty of prostitutes. What you would want to do more than anything else is provide other pathways, and that's through some kind of like robust infrastructure. So
place though for women. Like, yeah, there's obviously a need if they're in maybe a lower economic class or something, but at the end of the day, that's more of like a morality topic, you know? And so you can't really force that on everybody. I agree with you. But
Right. The other thing would be is that women are not happy when they're doing this. It's not empowering as a woman. You can go on
Probably,
Twitter
sure.
and see these women who are in their 30s with an OnlyFans link in their bio, but with no kids, no husband, no specific thing to actually
guess.
care about. It's all about materialistic things. These are the same women that you're seeing tweeting about how sad they are.
I don't know why you have to tie it to like not being a mother or not like being single or something, because that's like not what I mean. Maybe I just jerk. I don't use OnlyFans. I haven't in a while, but I guess when I did, I would look at like more different women. I don't know. Anyway, it just feels like you're kind of piling in another narrative. I don't think that people do sex work for fun. I think that a lot of times it is conditional, for sure. Sometimes it can be whatever, but you know my point. But it just sounds like you're trying to round up as many different issues as you can and put them together. So you can be like, yeah, it's just so bad. They're not being moms. Like, okay, if you don't want to be a fucking mom, who gives a shit? You know, I think that you should have kids, but like, stop shaming women for not wanting to have kids. Like, who cares? That's about freedom. Like, who fucking cares?
They're
Seems
tweeting
very
about
generalized, though.
It's not generalized. It's the majority of those women. They are on antidepressants.
I'd like to speak because I've
Yeah.
actually been in the industry.
What?
So I was trafficked for a decade. You hit the nail. That's
Oh,
okay.
that's
You hit the
terrible.
nail on the head. I came from a very poor socioeconomic background. I was a product of the state, and so I speak from experience when I say it's not empowering, it's not glorifying, it's not owning your body. None of that stuff is true. No little girl, when they're 4 or 5, says, I want to grow up and be a hooker. OnlyFans is the biggest pimp of them all. They're still taking
guess.
20%, and your content
I think it's 10, but okay.
still gets leaked a lot.
I agree. I'm not in favor of any kind of.
I don't think that OnlyFans is the biggest pimp. Oh, they do take 20%. I thought it was 10. Okay, cool. I guess.
Exploitation.
I mean, there's a difference between. Okay, so the issue with a pimp isn't that they take money, right? Fundamentally, it makes sense that women would want to hire a bodyguard in some capacity. The issue is that they take control of somebody. OnlyFans just like creates a platform for women to be able to use that's like really centralized for people to help them get guys to jerk off to them. A pimp is an abusive person that feeds women drugs and then takes most of the money and has a level of like a very high level of control. When like the pimp or should be more of a bodyguard working for the girl. But okay.
And I also am uncomfortable by the idea of like women I know, if they were in that industry, like I admit, like it makes me feel uncomfortable. My
That's
gut
his
is
personal.
So you have a daughter. I'm going to be having
Yeah.
a daughter in 4 months.
Okay.
So,
Go back to the daughter
So,
thing.
well, I mean, it's a good question because you're raising a human being for the future of society
Sure.
that we're going to all shape. How does it make you feel to raise a daughter in a world where you can
Sex
either
work is
preserve,
respected.
yeah, you can
It's a
either
great-
preserve her
it's a great
innocence,
question.
or you can step away and let her do the OnlyFans
How about
thing.
respect?
Well, what the fuck? How you can either preserve her innocence or have her do OnlyFans? Like, why are these the two fucking options? Like, you can't preserve your child's innocence. Your child is going to have to do things and fucking grow up. You can't shelter them. No, of course I don't want my kid doing fucking OnlyFans. But like, there's a different. They're just talking about like not shaming women that do only or people that do OnlyFans. They're not talking about how they're going to encourage their kid to do it because it's a super awesome, cool thing to do. What are you talking about? You've created just like a false argument.
It's a great
Femininity.
question, and there's two
Femininity over
truths.
feminism.
There's two truths that I feel like I can hold at the same time. One is I would be very uncomfortable if any female relative was or person that I loved was exploring that profession. Like I would have
You
some
can't even say it.
I'm trying to be as
But as a
like
father
professional as I can.
specifically,
Yeah,
because
as a
it
father
shows that you
specifically.
failed.
talking
No.
No?
I don't.
Hey,
think,
what if you guys just shut the fuck up and let this guy finish the sentence? I already know what he's going to say. He's going to say, hey, on the one hand, I can be uncomfortable with it while also like not shaming people for doing it. But like, yeah, I just noticed these women are just constantly interrupting. Not all of them. Like the one girl, the conservative content creator from Daily Wire, is not fucking constantly harassing them. But these women just won't shut the fuck up and let him finish. Like, let him make a goddamn point and just shut up. Like, be respectful. This isn't a woman issue. This is just that these women are incredibly, like, they're ignorant as fuck and they just won't stop talking. Like, just stop talking for a second. Let the guy finish his thought. He said fucking 5 words and you're jumping all over it. Of course, he's not going to give you a fleshed out position because you're not giving him time to flesh it out. Just stop talking. and let him finish what he has to say. You've already been told to chill the fuck out by the person moderating this because you guys are so obnoxious, and you have like absolutely no self-awareness to the point where you're like, you know what? Maybe I should just shut the fuck up for 2 seconds. That's crazy.
I would have complex feelings to navigate.
Yeah.
On a higher level, I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with that profession, and I respect people who do it in a way that's fulfilling to them and that brings them happiness. If someone's doing that job and it doesn't bring them joy, obviously I would not.
But most of the
encourage
women
But you have to
are doing it
understand it's
aren't
not bringing
fulfilled.
value or happiness to women.
I'm just trying not to wrap it all into one bundle because there's going to be exceptions. I think you just want to be careful of like putting a negative label over like so many people's lives.
I think it should be negative though, so that young daughters don't run to her. And why don't we have
We
more
respect
respect
them
for
enough to
femininity
love them, to
versus
direct them in a
respect for
different
sex work?
way.
Okay.
Men should take birth control.
If there was viable birth control, sure. I mean, what do you mean? Condoms? Like, yeah, men should wear condoms and should do less of pressuring women to not wear condoms, because it is a man thing to do, to be like, I don't want to wear a condom, it feels better, and like pressuring women into not using a condom. However, like actual birth control, like the pills that women take, women like it more than just to be able to get fucking cum in them. They like it because it helps moderate their period and whatnot. So if they had an effective male birth control, that's fine. The only one I've seen seemed to have like a negative impact on male fertility rates in like an irreversible way. Probably early study. So I mean, it depends on what you're talking about.
I think it should be choice.
Well, male birth control like does exist. The problem is there hasn't been a lot of funding into making it like commercially available. You know, it's about making it an equal responsibility all around, especially if there's a more effective way, like a pill. They can't just whine about the side effects when they know that it can significantly like decrease a woman's quality of life when she's dealing with all those.
Her
side
chance of
I agree with
fertility, her chances
guess.
of, I've never been on birth control, and I don't believe in taking it. I don't believe in putting anything like that alters my body. I'm not saying either party
Bro, you have fake tits. What are you talking about?
should have it, because personally, I don't think that anyone should put that stuff in their body. But if one's going to do it, and then the other one should have the option of doing it.
Yeah, if
Sure,
we're in a world
everybody
where
should have
women
the
have the access
option.
to it and men have the access to it, should is just such a strong
It's
word.
so strong.
Make the choice for your own body. That's why I didn't walk
Yeah.
forward. But yeah, if you both have the option.
If
Sure,
men had
I agree
the
with
right
that.
to birth control, then they would ultimately be coinciding and deciding if a child should come to life. Right now, women ultimately
Have all
have
the
that
power.
decision. No matter
Sure,
what you say,
they
she
should.
gets to decide if she goes through with it or not. And I think that's
Okay.
kind of problematic for many reasons, but yeah.
It goes back to like why I stepped forward with the military draft. Everyone
God, I
needs to
hate
take
this. Like, cause she thinks it's problematic because it's a male inequality. I just find this right.
No matter what you say, she gets to decide if she goes through with it or not. Then they would ultimately be coinciding and deciding if a child should come to life. Right now, women ultimately
Have all
have
the
that
power.
decision. No matter
Yes,
what you
they
say,
should.
she gets to decide if she goes through with it or not. And I
Yes.
think that's kind of problematic
It's
for many
not.
reasons, but yeah.
It goes back
Okay,
to like
so she's talking about how it's problematic that women have like the end perspective on whether they're gonna have a kid or not, right? And I just fundamentally agree with women being able to have that choice because it is living in their body and it is growing in their body. It's so annoying that we'll acknowledge inequalities and we act like they're always bad because they're just not. Right? When it comes to men being more physically strong, these women are all over the fact that men should absolutely benefit from that. They talk about how men, I guarantee they'd agree that men should make more money in sports, which I agree with as well. I guarantee they talk about how men are more physically strong, so they should have access to different opportunities because of that physical strength. They go as far to say that there are like an inherent female qualities that make them shit bosses. And they'll say that's a good thing for men and men should be able to take and utilize that and benefit from that. But the second that a woman has some kind of a biological advantage over a man, all of a sudden, I don't think it's fair. Oh, it's not fair. A woman shouldn't get that choice. A woman has to carry a baby in her for like 9 months. They should be the ones that have the end all perspective. Legally, should men be able to have a social? Yeah, absolutely. Like a guy should be able to say I do or don't want this, and should be able to have like a conversation with the person that they're with, whether to get an abortion or to not. But at the end of the day, women should have control over this. Men have plenty of biological advantages. Women have some biological advantages as well. One of them that they have is the ability to carry the kid. That means that they get to make the decision in the same way that men make more money in sports because they are physically stronger. Like that's just how it works. There are biological advantages. It's silly when we cry about every inequality that negatively impacts men, but every time there's an inequality that negatively impacts women, all of a sudden, like that's okay. Like it's so weird from these manosphere individuals. Like it's just silly. So
why I stepped forward with the military draft. Everyone needs to take responsibility for people's sexual and reproductive health.
But are you saying that because you know that women would want a guy to take birth control? Like that's more of like you want to please the feminists?
Please myself, because I'm a feminist.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
understand
saying
what?
like male feminists have a tendency to have the talking points, and they're like, women want us to take the birth control, so I guess we will. But like, do you actually think that you would?
Why wouldn't I?
Why don't you get a vasectomy?
I did.
Did you?
I have a vasectomy.
Yeah, okay, well,
Okay. Yes.
damn, he just shut her the fuck down. She's trying to pretend that he's like fucking grifting or whatever, and then he's like, "I got a vasectomy, idiot," and she looks really stupid. I wouldn't take male birth control. It just sounds too sketchy to me. But I also wouldn't force a woman to take it. It's fine to have the availability, but
I decided to get a vasectomy because I wanted to play a very small part in having men take more responsibility for their sexual and reproductive health. And once I learned more about vasectomies and the procedure, it seemed like a no-brainer for me to get it.
Good
I've
for
known for a
you.
few years that I didn't want children. And
Bro,
so
it's crazy that he fucking dunked on her so hard. Holy fuck, that was actually very
I've
funny.
been thinking about getting a vasectomy. And then Roe v. Wade
Jesus.
got overruled, and I just looked into it and I started doing more research on it. And free of insurance,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
no side effects. It's an outpatient procedure, so you go in 20 minutes, you're out. I
Damn.
went to work the next day. You should not take it if you have any inkling of a doubt
Okay.
about.
What if he's lying to prove the wrong? Good. That's funny then. Then he's quick on his feet. But it sounds like he actually got it.
Not wanting biological children because it's not 100% reversible.
Okay,
But in
that's
some
good to
cases
know,
they
though.
do it. Yeah.
Right. It's preposterous to me that it's only about 5 to 6% of men in the U.S. have a vasectomy because definitely more
Why?
than 5 to 6% of men in the U.S. don't want to
Don't
have
want kids.
children.
That's correct.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess,
just
like
complicated
condom?
with hormones. I know why.
Vasectomy.
Yeah.
There is no
There's
there's no
nothing in
middle
between,
ground
yeah.
between the two.
But-
And I think it's because of patriarchy. I know you hate me using that word, but like I think it's because we
I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting concept. I don't think it's because of patriarchy. I think it's because men don't want to undergo a surgery. Like birth control for women is much more accessible, and women tend to want it because it regulates them. So probably more to do with that. I think it's an option people should consider more. I think a lot of people are just like scared of it too because you're putting something close to your penis that's sharp, you know. But I don't know if it's patriarchy necessarily. I don't think that's what it comes down to.
But gynocentrism, that's why. Listen, we have advanced so much. You don't think they could come up with a pill at this point? Think about
They've
it.
come up with one. It's
it's
not
just that
commercial.
there's not a market for it.
But they've come up with one. It just seems to have negative side effects that men don't want to engage with. Right? Like women want to use birth control. It's not like we forced them. A lot of women are like, yeah, I'd like to have this, to have like a control over my period and stuff. But
Gynocentrism is like a...
Okay, so I want to hear from the disagreeers.
okay.
One thing that I do agree with is the fact that birth control has a lot of side effects. And if I'm not going to take that, and a lot of people aren't going to take that and have the side effects, then I don't think men should have to either. I think we live in
Nobody
an
should have to.
over-sexualized society where we're
I guess.
trying to, yes, find ways to solve this issue because you cannot stop everybody from doing it. Why not preserve and protect yourself and not go around and sleep with everybody?
But that is
There's a
message
very
is very
Sure, that's a good idea, not be sexually promiscuous, but people are. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like there's a level of human nature. As long as it's consensual, who cares? So you kind of work around that. And you provide that. Again, not everybody gets birth control just to be able to have sex, though. A lot of people do it because they like the fact that it helps regulate their period. So
very
my
small,
nice.
small group of
Right.
people that believe that,
That
mostly in the
might-
faith-based
Right.
communities.
You
But
know,
as
that's,
far
that's
as
your right to,
Yeah.
to be able to do that and make that decision, and
Right.
you know, we totally.
I just don't think
totally
it's ever
respect
going to
it.
get
I don't
like
think it should be like imposed on everybody type of thing.
I'm not for male birth control by force. If somebody wants to take that, yes, but I think there needs to be more comprehensive research and stuff. Female birth control is a little sketchy at times because there have been incidences where they've had to recall stuff because they kind of,
Multiple times, yeah.
I think one of them was like the old Yaz, they had to recall
Yeah.
it because it was causing like blood clots or something.
Yeah,
Like,
that's very
most
common.
birth controls cause.
do.
yeah,
That's
and,
what's caught,
and
yeah.
I hope we get to
well, okay, that's not true. Most birth controls don't cause blood clots. Holy fuck, it's okay. I'm not even going to look into it. It's possible that a side effect of most birth controls could be blood clots, but that doesn't mean that they cause blood clots. That is just a side effect that is enough to like warn people that it could be an issue, and it's usually if you have some kind of pre-existing condition. But to sit here and say that they cause them isn't like necessarily true. A lot of things can cause blood clots. That's like saying we shouldn't have truck drivers because that can cause blood clots. It can, because you're sitting down and you're just like pressing on a pedal all day. It's just don't just say it does cause it. It is a side effect of it, and I guess there is a distinction that should be made.
a place where we're not using things where hormone, because the other thing is a lot of people get blood tests to check their hormones on a regular basis. And actually, technically, birth control, female birth control, is an oral steroid.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's actually a 19 nor, and like people are taking steroids.
I think we're going to find out decades from now how harmful this actually
has
is, probably
been.
for
And-
both sexes.
and
Maybe.
Unfortunately, like the pharmaceutical industry is so based on profit that like if they think men aren't going to take male birth control, they're not going to put in the research, they're not going to create it, they're not going to invest in it. So if we socialize
Men probably won't take it.
and say, hey, like, this is a responsibility men should also have, then we can get research into all birth control to make it safer and more effective for everyone, so that we don't, not everyone has to be like experiencing these horrible side effects.
Being a mother is the most valuable thing a woman can do.
That's an interesting thing to say. I wouldn't say it's the most valuable thing. I think it's a really good thing to be a mother. I mean, I think that's like the point of life, is to propagate more life. But if you don't want to do it, like, whatever. But I guess I don't know. I don't think I'd answer yes. I mean, I think I put a high value in women wanting to be mothers, but I wouldn't do it in a way that shames women, you know? Because I'm a male feminist. Where's fucking news at?
I am
Where's this punk ass
almost, I mean,
bitch?
I am a mother, but she'll be born later. When you choose to have a kid, you're putting aside not necessarily what you want to do in the future, because I believe that women have every opportunity to still pursue what they want to do, even becoming a mother. It's very fulfilling, in a sense, to be that selfless, to bring a human being into the world and give everything to them and watch them grow up and become their own person, and to feel that love unconditionally that something materialistic will never give you.
Yeah. I honestly don't remember my life before my son. And it really makes me sad today that more women, 10 years, more women in the United States will be opting out of marriage, out of children. That just is insane to me. It's innately in us to nurture and to love and to care and to create life. We literally give birth. It's an ability, a gift, and it's also, too much is given, much is required. It's a massive responsibility to raise a child, knowing that, as someone said earlier, your children are going to be the future of our planet.
Sure.
Wow,
Okay, I'm going to hear more from the disagreeers.
We're running the moms through the dirt. That's what I heard.
I think it's going to be the most valuable thing that I do in life, to have children and create a family. It's just such a subjective thing, and there's so many things that people contribute to the world. And for, I think, most women, when they leave this earth sitting on the deathbed, they probably will think the most powerful and valuable thing they've ever done is to create children. You know, there's like the famous quote, the greatest two things that you can leave on this earth when you die is art and children. And I think a lot of people are going to feel that way. I just don't want to subscribe value to somebody who doesn't see that as
or somebody who can't have kids or just chooses not to.
Right.
You know, there's other ways to achieve greatness. But being a mom is a great thing. I think we all.
Being a good mom.
Does anyone?
Being a good mom, yes.
Yeah, a good mom. There's a lot of people who are moms, not everybody's a good mom.
I was raised by a single mom. On top of that, I was also adopted. So my birth mother had to make an incredibly difficult choice to decide not to pursue raising this child. And then my mother, who is a single mom, raised me and raised my siblings. The thing is she was also like a teacher and a professor and a principal and an administrator. Honestly, what feminism really should be about and is about is making it so that women, if they choose to be a mother and just do that for their entire life, they get as much respect and value and everything that they should be afforded as someone who decides to be a billionaire CEO as a woman.
The feminist movement is teaching women that it's the worst thing you could possibly do, because you're going to lose your money and you're going to...
I think
that's not happening. You're being silly. That's not a thing. Feminism isn't teaching women that they shouldn't be a mother. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, there's nothing there. Like, you're making things up at this point. You've decided that because there are women who don't want to, or they might have like a career over being a mother, that somehow feminism is teaching them to do a thing. That's not what they're teaching. It's giving women the right or the ability to do whatever they want, judgment free, hopefully. All right, that's not what's happening. You've tied that into it because you have like a weird fucking like narrative based argument.
I think sometimes some people live in echo chambers, and that might be a problem. But like, also, here's the other thing: are women not having children because it's economically difficult? Because in America, it's really hard to have a kid. It's really expensive. We don't have healthcare. We don't.
You're fine, but not everyone.
I know, but I'm saying that, you know, what the act of having a kid takes.
Hey, maybe if you could just shut the fuck up, right? And listen to someone else for a second. Don't take this. I swear to God, I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to punch your mom in the balls.
Two people.
Yes, but me and my girlfriend, we could probably afford a kid, but we, like, right now, it's probably not good because of
and
our
you're making
situations.
that decision.
But here's the other thing. Not
Oh, yeah, I just can't stop talking. Bro, the point is that, like, yeah, economic stressors are absolutely a fucking factor in this topic. There are, like, that's a big thing. Like, we should come up with issues with that. Again, I'm talking about some kind of a way it's like wealth redistribution in some capacity. Some kind of universal child care could help. There's a lot of incentive programs to have to help people, you know, increase their birth rate. The point he's making is that it can be difficult to do because we live in an expensive time full of responsibility, and maybe we could just figure something out there. That's it. You saying, but I'm okay. Wow, incredible. Like, what a smart thing to say all the time.
Actually, economically really hard to have a kid in this country. Somebody's going to have to stop working. Somebody's going to have to make less money. There's not healthcare.
When I had my son,
True.
I had no means. I had
Healthcare would
been
be great.
trafficked. Obviously, I made the decision
Bro, stop
to
sucking me,
see
you
it as
pussy
life
ass
and to
bitch.
have the child. And I had the child, and I was homeless in Newport Beach 8 years ago. When my son was just still nursing, 10 months old, worked around the clock, and didn't stop until he was almost 5 years old, so until I got my degree. Well,
How do you handle childcare?
And the county pays for it. That's why I'm trying to say we do have resources. I was a
In some areas, sure, they might pay for it. Not in all areas.
full-time
Yeah, but
student,
that's
and because
Newport
of,
Beach. Like that's not everywhere.
California is
And
one of the more
dissect
Dissect every
if you're a
county
single
and see
mom-
which counties offer it.
California is one of the more
Yeah.
exceptional.
so
You can't just move though. Like this isn't something that every place has. Like more financially robust states have this, and that's cool. But like not everybody does have access to these different things. So
I do think there's resources if you look
Okay.
for them. And I don't think
no, there just aren't. Like some places there are, but like what do you want to say? Oh, just move to California and you'll be out. There's not every place has this. No, it just doesn't exist.
that just saying, oh, it's expensive to have a kid. Like,
Woe is me, I can't have a kid because I'm too poor. No, we live in a country where, like I
God,
said
you're
earlier,
such a
we have the
baby.
opportunities to pursue what we can and what we want to do. And I don't think the feminist movement has any place to tell someone that they're too dumb or too poor to be able to have a kid.
Are you just like an idiot? Like I don't understand. Like you just like literally don't understand the concept of money. Like you live in like a fucking fantasy world where money doesn't mean anything. What are you talking about? Like if you don't have enough money to do a thing, you can't do that thing. It's just talking about having more robust supports for people to be able to do shit. Just sitting here going like, oh, you're poor. Well, you're a conventionally attractive woman that probably skated through life. That's what happens. This is the problem, is that they have these women on here, a lot of them, who are attractive. They're not very smart, but they're attractive. And then they go, see, life's so easy. It's not easy for most people. You just happen to be conventionally attractive. Guys want to fuck you and give you money. That's your entire value to society. Outside of that's why you get to skirt around being dumb as fuck, saying stupid shit that's disconnected from the world because you never had to truly struggle at all. Oh, because I'm pretty. Oh, people will do things for you. They'll just do things for you because of your virtue of your existence, because you're an attractive girl. Not everybody skates through life like a fucking la-di-da, like pissing and shitting themselves with people just fucking wiping their assholes and they're fucking pissed for them. Okay, you are a privileged person for being attractive. And I'm not sitting here saying I'm not privileged. I got plenty of shit, bro. I was able to do well in school. I have a decent voice to be able to do commentary. I'm reasonably intelligent. Like I'm fine. But my point is that you act like the entire world is this. Everybody has the same experience because you had an experience, and that's just a stupid way to interact. If you think that everybody's experience can be or is the same as your own, then you're just a little piss baby that doesn't understand life. It's just a fact. I don't know what to tell you. You're just like a privileged little baby, and you probably shouldn't be having these conversations because you clearly don't understand how to be a functioning human being that like understands other people. So
Absolutely not.
But that is what the feminist movement is doing.
what?
I agree. Yeah, maybe it's not as cool or fashionable to become a parent. Maybe like that's not, what
No, of
people
course not.
are valuing. Feminism to me, and I think to the other guys here, is just like viewing the sexes equally and feeling like they should have equal opportunity. I don't think it
Sure.
expands much beyond that. No one here is saying it's not cool to be a mom, or women shouldn't aspire to be a mom if that's going to be fulfilling to them. If that's like your path, by all means, I think you should do it. My wife was very specific and like direct with me when we started dating. She's like, I want to have kids. This is important to me. Are you on board or not? And that was a goal that we set for ourselves. But she's not just a mom. You know, there's other things. She has other ambitions, and she can do both of those things. And I think we all feel that that's possible. So when I hear you say, you know, like feminism is saying that like moms can't do this or don't be a mom, I'm not sharing that experience of
Well,
that,
that's
of that
good.
information.
We don't shame motherhood. Like our side, we promote it a lot of the times, but whenever you hear the opposite thing, it's usually from the feminists.
I've engaged in this discourse to probably a toxic degree. I've never seen a single feminist person ever say you shouldn't have kids. Not a one time. I haven't even seen it as an outlier. I've engaged with this like relentlessly to an obnoxious degree. This is just not happening on any scale, not even the smallest scale. There's nobody saying don't have kids. You're interpreting information as don't have kids because people are saying, hey, women don't just have to be this thing. So you've interpreted that as, oh, women shouldn't have kids. Nobody has ever said that. I don't know what you're fucking talking about. This is not a thing that's happening. Stop.
Men need to be masculine to keep their families safe.
Sure, I don't care. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? Just keep your family safe. I don't really care about, like, who gives a shit. Make sure you keep your family safe. Pay your taxes, police officers, buy locks in your doors, maybe get a gun. I don't know. What is it? Like, I don't know. Sure, whatever. This is, okay.
Of course he's going to step forward. Look at him. I think there's a reason why people love Andrew Tate. And whatever you think about him.
because they're fucking they're dumb children. That's it. Like, we have to stop with this like Andrew Tate discourse as if he's not a sex trafficker. He's admitted it. Like, we're beyond like this point. Stop talking about Andrew Tate in any positive light. He's a fucking loser. Holy shit. People like Andrew Tate because he makes sexist memes and he's a strong, rich boxer and sex traffics women and admits it and thinks it's cool. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Jesus Christ.
In regards to what he's being accused of, which he has not been proven, but that's neither here nor there.
He's admitted it. I don't care if that's just where it comes down to. We've heard it from his own fucking mouth. You can wait for the courts, but like he's admitted it. So, you know, okay, you're just dumb at this point. If you disagree with me, like I'm kind of tired of the discourse. You can go look up the videos where he literally is said admitting that he does these things. Like it's all over the place. He literally had to take it out of the bio of his Hustlers University that he goes around and finds women to fall in love with him so that he can fucking take them across the world and like fucking do all this shit. There's other videos of him talking about how he would steal money from these girls and give them a bunch of promises. There's fucking screenshots and shit to talk about like him taking passports. He talks about how he has a bottom bitch that fucking helps groom these women. Like we're at that point. Like just stop with this dumb fucking baby shit. You're an idiot. Like the most reasonable perspective isn't, oh, Andrew Tate didn't do it. The most reasonable perspective of a level-headed, intelligent person is based on what he said, he probably did the thing, but you know we don't know because we should wait for this trial to be over. That's your most reasonable perspective you get to have. You don't get to say it hasn't been proven. You're an idiot. You're a dumb person.
There, men gravitated toward that. Why? Because he spoke.
Because there's no fucking fathers in the home to teach you what an actual fucking decent man looks like. That's why.
To men in a sense of being a man, being a protector, and you have to be in charge of all your faculties and think more critically. So those aspects of masculinity appeal to men because men want to innately protect. If I go on a date and you take me out on a date and he's like, no, I wouldn't, but that's okay. And you take me to a dinner and you don't sit facing the door, I'm never going out on another date with you.
What are you, a fucking child? What does that mean? You're not sitting, what? What do you think? You're in the fucking mafia? What the hell what are you talking about? If they don't sit at the door, you're not gonna. What, dude? What are you, a baby? What do you like? This is what happens when you watch too many fucking like gangster movies. If you don't sit watching the door, oh, guess what? What if they came out of the kitchen? That's usually on the opposite side of the door. How do you know that they're not going to come from the kitchen, the front door? So they break in the back. They wait for their opportunity. Oh my God! Now he can't see it. What are you talking about? This is just wild. I'm actually going to shit in my pants because of like these this is the same thing as I have some fucking weird friend who's like, if I get into a car and the girl doesn't open the door from the other side, he thinks like then I don't want to date her. He's the kind of guy that like he gets in his car, he opens the door for the girl, and then if she doesn't get open the door for him, like by reaching over, he's not going to date her because of some dumb Italian movie that we saw one time. That's literally what you're doing. You're cosplaying like West Side Story. Do you know how embarrassing that is for you? It's just so weird. What are you talking about? What the fuck? What's happening?
It's not like we're helpless, like, oh, I can't do anything, but having a man stand by you, protect you and your family and your children, masculinity is very important.
Okay, sure.
For example, like, I'm like 230 pounds, my girlfriend's like 110, 5'2". Like, there's no way if somebody breaks in the house that she's gonna fight them off, unless she has a gun on her or something. But so in that situation, I would fill that masculine role. But like anybody can be strong, and like in a situation where I'm not there, I would hope if we had kids, she could protect them and defend them like the best she could.
Like a gun.
Where I get the issue with like, oh, men need to be masculine. It's like, oh, men need to always go work and bring the money and all this stuff. Because my girlfriend, she's highly educated. She actually makes way more money than I do, like way more. I work as a personal trainer. I don't make as much as she does. It is traditionally not very masculine for a woman to make more money than a man. And I know some people, they will.
I don't think it really matters as long as everybody's like contributing to the best of their ability. I don't think it necessarily matters how much money it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like if you're just some asshole that's working a minimum wage job and you don't want to do better for yourself and you have no desire to do better, then like, yeah, you're worthless. But if you make less money than your wife, like who gives a shit? As long as you're trying your best, you know?
Be like, oh, you're a man. If your woman makes more money than you, that's pathetic. Why is she with you? You sound like a loser. Things like that. And I don't let that define my masculinity. I used to be insecure about it, but now I'm more mature. And I feel like we're getting to a society where that's less of a problem. And like some people might disagree with this, and like, but it's just my opinion. I think to raise a son, it's easier if you're a man. It doesn't have to be a father. It could be an uncle or some positive role model. Same thing with a positive female role model, because like, I don't know what it's like to be like a female going through puberty, but I was a young man. Right now, a lot of our young men are misguided, and a lot of them are making bad decisions, and it's because like a lot of these young men get this testosterone boost, their brains aren't fully developed, and they like the vast majority of crimes are committed by 16 to 23-year-olds.
The reason I walk forward is about exactly what you
I thought he was going to say because we don't have enough fathers or some kind of a positive male role model. He almost said it, but
said men have these feelings and this aggression often deep inside them, and it's about using that aggression or those feelings that you have to protect rather than to inflict.
Sure, I guess.
I guess I'm just not entirely sure what like just masculinity in general has to do with keeping people safe?
Could I quickly respond? And that I just think it's that men have that.
I think it's just the idea, which I can tend to agree with, like if that you should be the first one to fight. But I think it's more based on physical capability. So if you're somebody who's more physically capable than the other person, whether you're a man or a woman, you should be ready to fight. I think that obviously men are going to be in that position. So like for me, like I'm ready. You're always ready to fight, guys. Don't worry. I'm sitting facing the door so I could see if anybody's going to come and attack my wife. That's really more what it's about. And I tend to agree with that. If somebody broke into my house with my wife, I'm not going to go out there and go fucking start swinging and try to fight. I'm obviously going to try to do like a risk, like minimize like the amount of harm and call the cops and like stay in a room with my wife. But if they get into the room that I'm in, I'm obviously going to put myself into harm's way first. So like that's what's more what it's about.
That natural propensity towards it. If I think of roles in society that are protectors, we could say police officers. Anybody's going to take on that role of physical aggression in order to stop a bad situation from happening. Men tend to take those roles, and if you just look at the demographics of those roles in particular, men choose to take that on, and they persevere and drive for it.
Let's say I get married to a guy and he wants to be a stay-at-home dad. That's fine. I enjoy working. So I actually wouldn't be totally opposed to me grabbing the gun if an intruder came in and being the one to kill somebody, if my husband's normally like the one protecting the kids, I guess. I don't think it necessarily matters who's protecting the family, just somebody must.
I like what you said about intuition though. Like my wife has a lot of intuition. I think she's better than me at like helping us avoid unsafe situations.
But to physically combat a stranger that's at your door with a gun, a mask on, and is breaking in.
Yeah, it's convenient to have someone who's more like him than.
But would you send your wife who's intuitive to use her?
If a dude had a gun and I didn't have a gun, I don't care how big you are. You think I'm gonna go fight that fucking person? Like if I had to, sure. But if they're But I understand the concept of what you're saying, sure.
Intuitive powers to handle that, to protect, or would you use your masculine, my daughter's protected, I'm going down
If we get attacked, I'm going to do everything I can to
course
protect
my
my family. That's not men having to be masculine. I just think that's people protecting those they love. I think when women are put in situations where they have to protect their families, they can exert tremendous force. Obviously, they're more vulnerable because they're not typically like as strong on average.
Comes full of testosterone, right?
But I just don't think like this is something men have to do. I think you got to be careful about putting pressure on men to embody some sort of like macho, tough, violent.
I don't think it's macho.
I've had men in my life who like embody that tough role, and it like creates uncomfortable environments. It sometimes invites aggression, danger to the situation. It's a certain role playing that I think men actually, it's beneficial to grow out of.
Why do you think it's a role?
It's an interesting, I understand what he's saying. He's not talking about a scenario where somebody's breaking in and a guy has to defend it. What he's talking about is a general scenario where men, and I think that all men, like, I don't know, maybe not all, but I've seen this before, will sometimes almost glorify like that role of a protector and kind of like, you know, they'll be like, oh, I want to do this, like don't fuck with my girlfriend, like they're instead of engaging with some kind of like risk reduction or risk harm, they might want to like, they might be looking for a fight or looking for a problem and like almost goading somebody into having an issue with them so that they can fucking, you know, express themselves and be like, oh look, I could fight you, I could beat you up, I could do that. That's what he's talking about. There are issues like that. Some people do that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think that applies specifically to a scenario where somebody's breaking into your house, but I understand what he's saying.
What if that's just who they are?
It's innately in them.
Well, then I think they should go to therapy and work on it.
But why do
play
you
a
think
sport and get out that aggression.
So I understand.
Aggression isn't bad.
I always hear from other male feminists.
I don't know. Let me look up aggression. I might probably disagree. Okay, let's see. Aggression. Let's see, hostile or violent behavior or attitudes towards another. Aggression is 1,000% bad. Listen, I'm somebody that has like anger problems. Like I went to therapy for a long time. It's something that I deal with every day. I have never hit somebody or anything, but like it's a problem that I have. Like I've broken things before. I've expressed myself in very unhealthy ways. Men can be angry, and like anger problems are not good. Aggression is bad, and aggression needs to be dealt with. Walking around with an aggressive attitude invites people to be aggressive back to you, right? It's just a fact. It's not a good thing to walk around like you're trying to pick a fight, because you're going to find, if you're looking for a fight, you will find one. Okay, that's what he is speaking to, like getting people to like, and that's a part of getting your what do I want to say? That's part of getting your emotions under control. An aggressive man it's not a good man. It's okay to be aggressive when you need to, but like going around looking for a fight, being aggressive, like trying to look for a fight, having an attitude that welcomes violence, is not smart. It's not good. You need to regulate your emotions better as a man, and you can't be an aggressive person going around being a fucking dickhead. Like that's like being an aggressive person manifests itself in ways where like you just start berating staff at like a fucking or cashiers at like a store, or you start being disrespectful to people like around you when they're walking through the door, or if you work for someplace just being an asshole. Like that's how aggression manifests itself. To say that that's somehow a good thing is just ridiculous. It's not good.
It's like, oh, that guy's trying to be a macho guy. Why?
Okay,
Why
well,
is
so
he
here's the
insecure?
thing. I think sometimes it's not genuine. He's playing a character. Actually, I'm usually the one to de-escalate situations because of how I look and how I am presented. So I de-escalate. And actually, I always tell people I don't, and I always encourage young men, avoid the fight.
Yeah.
If you can
Yeah,
avoid it, stay
sure.
away. But if you have to, obviously do what you have to do, like survive. And I would say to women or anything, but don't start and actually try to deter, get away, because violence should be always a last resort. Violence, violence only brings more violence.
If one of the other guys said that, they wouldn't have listened. I'm guaranteeing you. The only reason that they're listening is because it's a more masculine looking guy. That's it. Like they wouldn't take that advice from like any of the other people. I'm just saying that's like a fact. I'm letting you know because they were saying stuff that would contradict that just before he started talking.
The differences between men and women should be celebrated.
No, what? No? Why do you celebrate it? They just exist. I don't think you need to celebrate them.
I'm talking about poles of energy. We have polarity in everything in the universe, from the battery. You can't put two negatives into a battery and it work. You can't put two positives. It has to go flop. So there's poles day and night. Everything, yin yang. It's energy, and we are energy.
I don't think everything's polar, though.
It
Like,
is, though.
Why apply one lens to the
Well,
whole
you just stepped
universe?
forward with the prompt that said that masculine
think-
men and women's differences should be celebrated.
I want to celebrate the difference
So-
between men and women, but I feel like you have this tendency to apply sometimes like these quantum or
Because
like
it is, because we live in a
these
quantum universe of
macro
masculine
ideas
and
to
feminine
everything.
energy.
But you
It
guys
just
do
doesn't
the
have to
same
be
thing too, though. You
I think he's just saying to celebrate differences doesn't mean we exist on two opposite poles. And that's
Yeah,
and
I'm
we
okay,
spent
and
our
I'm saying that.
Yeah,
So
like,
I'm saying that.
there's things exist in nature that are triangles or triads. Like not everything's yin and yang. You know,
But it kind of is. I actually
Well,
believe that the masculine energy is elevated in a sense that they have more responsibility as protector, provider. And so for women, we
don't have
like
to,
lean to
though.
them and we look up to them as the leader.
Okay.
So not to say that they're not equal, but there's a little bit more responsibility in the masculine field. And without those,
Bro, just stop talking. Women can work too. Like it's almost like these people just don't realize the very basic thing. It's just so weird. It's like fucking this discourse gets so dumb and boring. It's fucking crazy. Holy fuck.
outlines of structure, then we have chaos and we don't have a society. We have no more children because women aren't having children anymore.
I don't think I fear chaos as much as
They're having kids. Just certainly you'd find. I understand in Western countries women are having kids less. That's definitely happening. We'll survive. Again, this is like a modern problem, modern solution. They're having less kids because a lot of it is like financial and economic stressors, and they might want to work on their life, provide, or work on their career. So just provide ways for them to be able to do these things. Right, some kind of universal healthcare would be phenomenal because it's also like just it costs like $20,000 to have a baby. So like you want to talk about like the biggest issue, probably that it costs, a fucking minimum wage job to have a fucking kid, right? This is probably the biggest issue. It's very expensive and it makes people apprehensive. But
you threw in a little nugget. I have to take it. You do see women as not.
I don't see them as the same level as men.
I just
You're right.
I would encourage you, like, from a loving place, to just maybe challenge that. Like,
I challenge all the
how might
time.
your experience
I
change
think
if you saw
women.
yourself?
I think
Hold on,
women are
keep-
4 quarters. A guy is $1. I think they're equal. They're just not the same.
Yeah, I think that the prompt and what
Sure.
I really took to is that it's so important for you guys to celebrate your femininity and celebrate what it means to be a woman for you, and we will joyfully celebrate that with you, right? And likewise to us. However we want to express our masculinity, that should be celebrated, right?
And whichever way you had to do it, and like I said, I don't
the
think
hell
it's
is this
as
thing?
rigid as like we want society,
The
like
fuck?
some people want us to think it is. But it should be celebrated because there are innate differences that are like just biological, and there's going to be those differences, and there shouldn't be anything frowned upon. Like, women being like more softer or emotional, it shouldn't be something frowned upon. But if a man chooses to be that, that shouldn't be like that's feminine, that's not masculine. That's we should celebrate those qualities in people.
yeah,
Can
again,
we disagree a step forward?
they would have disagreed with him if it was another person. But since he's a more masculine man, they're like, oh yeah, for sure. It's just bizarre, like how easily susceptible they are to everything.
Men are more enslaved than ever before.
What?
This is a tough one, huh?
I agree with most
does
of
that
what
mean?
everyone said. It's just the should. I agree that the differences between men and women can be celebrated, and I celebrate
Sure,
it.
yeah, I agree
I
with
think most
that.
people do to some extent. Do as you please. Yeah.
I feel like it's important to celebrate it because I know for me, part of with gender dysphoria, I really enjoyed, emulating and having masculine traits and being a man. So being able to celebrate that and say, all right, fantastic, I can celebrate that this is a different thing than what my sex assigned at birth would tend to go for, but celebrating both sides of those things and the dichotomy that may be different is really essential to allowing anyone to really just express themselves the way they want to.
Thank you guys. You guys were all
Cool.
amazing.
Thank you.
Very good sports.
Yeah, I wish we could do
Yeah, you
like
guys
5
did
more
great.
prompts.
Yeah, you guys are all very helpful.
Oh,
very
Got to see
helpful.
another side of feminism.
Very helpful. All right, interesting, I guess. Bro, I'm just getting so tired of like the male-female discourse. It's so wild and disconnected the way that we talk about these topics. It's like fucking exhausting engaging with it. I mean, for real, like it's so disconnected from society the way we talk about this. We glorify fucking sex trafficking rapist pieces of shit, and then we fucking downplay some trans man because he wasn't born a man, but like who really gives a shit about any of this? Like it's fucking crazy. You know, like the discourse is so toxic and like dumb. It's incredible, honestly. But yeah, cool video. It's over. Woo! That's the best part of it, is that it's over now.